Good evening and welcome to CanHammer, your stop for Age of Sigmar from the Great White North. It was actually hard to say that because
It was.
we're doing 40k for the last while. So today's show is episode 83. It is an AOS show, and we're going to talk about the new competitive play because we can now do that again. We're also going to not skip the lore review for tonight because we have a lot to talk about, and we're going to do a Duardin Pimp My List, which is actually, we should say Grand Alliance, was it Order? No.
Yeah, it's order.
Yeah,
Order.
It's an Order Grand Alliance, but it's Duardin mixed with a few other elements, so we'll do that one. As usual, I'm your host, CanHammer Chris, at CanHammer Chris on Twitter, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr.
Logan. That's at OnePlusLogan on Twitter.
And we have a special guest who hasn't joined us for quite some time, but
Back by popular demand,
that's the quote.
John Green, ready to go.
This
Back
demand,
up.
all those emails go directly to Green's personal email address, so apparently there's lots of it. Well, we
There
don't
is.
know. So welcome on. So those of you that have been long-term listeners, John was with us back when we played a lot of heavy competitive 8th edition.
This guy.
I think you were on 5 or 6 shows. It's pretty good time.
More than that, but that's all right.
Was it more than that? It was a long time ago. Back when,
This guy.
like, you were around when Colin was on.
Yes, I was. But I was also on, and we did a lot of shows with Ron and stuff. I mean, basically, there's a lot of episodes, even around 30 through 50 or 60
Awesome.
that I'm on. For those of you that have our back catalog.
And so we brought John on today because he, like myself, is a pretty big Age of Sigmar enthusiast. He's signed up for Capital City Bloodbath for Age of Sigmar, and I think you've been sending me more messages than anyone else regarding this, so it's good to talk about it.
Absolutely. I'm happy to see our wonderful match play supported by Games Workshop back in place. I gave 40k a go for a while, but I think similar to Logan, I'm pretty much trapped to one game system.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that it's Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking, like, if I go to Quebec City to switch to AOS for that.
Ugh.
I was supposed to go with Logan, but then you got a different partner.
What? No, I didn't.
Didn't? Are we going
No,
together still?
I thought we were.
Oh, then never mind. It's happening. Sorry, never mind.
We'll figure that out.
Sounds like there's dissension in the ranks.
Yeah.
I gotta talk to the wife still. But anyway, so those of you that have tuned in for the first time or are new to the show, this is our bi-weekly webcast we do about usually generally Games Workshop games. We tend to tell you at the beginning of the episode whether it's Age of Sigmar or 40k related. We try to stick mostly to that one gaming system, so if you're not interested in the other, you can tune out and skip and wait 2 more weeks for the next one. We are live on Twitch TV Tuesday night. We try to announce this, but it's been a bit irregular because I just had a new child, so that screwed up our recording schedule. Thank you. We are also available on YouTube if you want to see our ugly mugs talk and look like ridiculous idiots, and where most of you listen is probably on iTunes, so you can check us out, CanHammer on iTunes. Awesome, so we're going to move on. What kind of hobby you guys been doing? Because I've been doing a load, so I'll go last, but Green, what kind of hobby you been doing?
All right. Well, since the Age of Sigmar General's Handbook dropped, I've been combing through its pages, potentially some leaked photographs to try and find what army I should be playing. So as soon as the General's Handbook dropped and the Capital City Bloodbath switched to its comp system, I think I registered the next day. Is basically as soon as you guys announced it, you were switching comp systems. So then it quickly became try to find what I can play in that event. So I've been trying to bolster my demon army, trying to get what isn't on rounds onto rounds, but then I was missing a few components. I think I'm leaning heavily towards Nurgle Demons, so anything that's in the Nurgle Demon list really linchpins around the Papa Nurgle, so I don't have that, so I went out and got one. I managed to obtain the Forge World 1 from somebody out at Forbes Hobby, so I'm painting that. That's my current challenge, and
Very cool.
trying to get 30 Plague Bearers onto 32 millimeters, because as I mentioned earlier, I switched to 40k, but when I did so, I put my demons from squares onto 25 mil rounds, because they were on them at the time, and then
Which is still legit, though, by the way. That's
it is
still legit.
but they look way better on 32.
That they do.
So I have switched.
Yeah.
I'm started to convert my my demons back onto 32 mil rounds. So core, and then I'm really undecided. It's so new and so exciting to go through that General's Handbook and find out the points values, what's optimal, and what's not. I think this was for a lot of us that played 8th edition or played Warhammer, in fantasy back a couple of years ago now. List tweaking was a lot of the enjoyment, right? Taking and finding out what's optimal, right? Trying to do that, and so that's back in, baby. We're back there.
Yeah, you can actually pimp, like, for my... this is funny because I know it's off topic, but it came up, but I can actually pimp an Age of Sigmar list now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
there's actually
Like, we
ways
never
to.
used to be able to do that because you'd
No.
be like, well, within this comp or that comp, or
Yeah.
I guess take
Your body
15
wants, or-
cannons.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the flame
So
cannons.
this is good. So I'm
And
just
we'll discuss the General's Handbook in a bit. That's the subject, but...
exactly. But I've been combing through, trying to figure out what I need to do. Really get to. I mean, I still have quite a few models that are still on squares. Like Beast and Nurgle and 40k are terrible. So why would you ever? I just left them in my glass cabinets. But so I got to get those onto rounds and a few other things. But really, that's what I've been doing: painting my demons, trying to get them ready for Age of Sigmar, and going from there.
And that's the nice thing is you were kind of lucky that you were doing demons at the end of 8th edition.
Yeah, I know.
And then 40k, and like basically we stopped playing Age of Sigmar for about a year. Like we still played, but not
Not
competitively.
much. Yeah.
And then so you started playing 40k demons, and you're like converting them around, and it's kind of awesome now that you can just I can play both games. So if, like
Exactly, yeah.
you basically didn't quit 40k. Everything you add to your Age of Sigmar army can just be used.
Yeah, I can just keep going. I mean, a lot of my basing for I mean, you guys have played against either the events or whatnot. I have the dead Bretonians on my on my bases. And
40k guys,
Yeah.
yeah.
40k guys. Those were space horses. Come on, those are.
Rough Riders.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. So you've been doing anything interesting, Logan?
I have been packing. My condo is for sale, so getting ready to move. So all my hobby supplies are in a big box sitting over there. So I'll be back in action hopefully in a month or two on the hobby side, but nothing right now.
It's okay because you did a whole army, right?
I've
just did a
painted
whole
like
army.
4 armies this year, so yeah, I'm not too upset.
Sorry, John.
Is your condo then sold, Logan? Is it gone, or is it still listed?
It's conditionally sold,
Okay.
so we'll
Cool.
see.
I just want-
We'll see what
I just
happens from
wanted to
there.
keep packing this stuff away in order to avoid questions from potential buyers.
Oh no, the Warhammer stuff. Oh man,
Yeah.
so we had the place listed since May. Warhammer stuff on full display. I've got my glass cabinet in the living room full of stuff. My shelves are
Yeah.
right there. So everyone saw what I did here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the little child walks in. Why are there so many skulls?
Yeah, I don't want to live here, mommy.
Like, I guess it would be kind of weird, but I think if you go into anybody's house, there's a weird room in everybody's house. Like, if it's not like a bar full of NFL stuff, it's like a sewing room where your wife has like little sewing things everywhere, or like I don't. Everybody's house I've almost ever been to, there's like a weird room.
Mine just happens to be my entire living room full of man dolls.
Yeah. Well, mine's like obviously the cabinets behind me.
Yep.
And John's is this whole damn house is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you had to sleep in the pink room.
Yeah, I like that pink room. Nice and roomy. Actually, Secret and I slept on a single air mattress, I think, in that room. Cool.
that's-
Okay, so I guess
The big spoon.
yeah, I think it was me, but we'll go on to the my hobby progress. So I'm working on my Stormcast Eternals, trying to get those pumped out. As I said, I had kids that kind of interrupted that because we have the AOS painting challenge. So I got basically a whole tray of my Stormcast base coated, washed, custom bases done. I just got to paint the custom bases, glue them together, and then I can highlight my whole army. And I should be able to pump those out over the next 3 months quite easily. I'm feeling the pressure because I wanted to get the army totally done for Capital City as the ringer. I don't want to have a ringer army that's ugly or on square bases. Because I'm like, if this is the ringer army and somebody shows up and wants to talk to me about playing, I want to be able to be like, this is the brand new faction, this is what they look like. Play with, like, you could maybe play one of my units while I play because I'm ringing, which hopefully I don't have to do. Other than that, I ordered 3 tables of terrain for the tournament, and I wanted to show some of this off. So I got about, I think it's 12 of these Age of Sigmar houses,
Nice.
plus a bunch of forests. They're nice kits, so if you're on YouTube or the live stream, you can check those out. So we're really trying to make this, we've got a lot of comments about our Age of Sigmar tables last year being top-notch, and since the tournament's almost sold out now and double the size, we wanted to double our tables and add in a lot of really nice terrain. I also ordered 3 boxes of ruins from Czech Republic, which turned out fantastic.
Yeah, they look amazing.
Now, I'm going to just bad radio right now. So the guy that I ordered these buildings from, and he wheels and deals, and he was awesome to work with. We don't normally get plug outs because we don't take sponsorship, but this guy right here, which is Wargames Factory, Wargame Terrain Factory, he's on Facebook. I'll put his logo up on the screen. He's well worth checking out, man. All the buildings I got from were fantastic. We worked out a pretty solid deal as well. Because I bought 3 tables, he gave us a really good deal for the tournament, and I'm sure if you work with him, he's happy to. Just say that CanHammer Chris or Chris Haynes sent you, and
and you get a substantial kickback.
Not me, but it looks good. But then when I order like 4 tables next year, he'll give me a deal. We don't have a deal worked out. As I said, he doesn't sponsor. He sponsored the event by giving us one of the 40K tables that's at a very high discount.
Nice.
That's coming. It's really awesome 40K table too. It's like a highway, it's like the big 401 style with the on ramps, but they're all broken. So it's a big highway down the middle with all these broken on ramps and then ruins everywhere.
Wow.
It's really cool.
That'll be
So
awesome.
stop traffic with a broken down car at the front.
Yeah, I should. I'll put like a broken. I have a broken Land Raider. I should put it on the thing.
There you go.
It's stalled.
We'll put a certain driver in it too, so everybody knows. We won't mention what. But okay, so that's that. Other than that, I think that's it, man. Capital City. So I've been just working on logistics for that, doing the Age of Sigmar pack and all that good stuff. So we're gonna move on to the new releases. So we're gonna try to gloss over some of this so that we don't get into the details and spoil our main topic. But the first thing is General's Handbook actually officially dropped.
Yep.
$30 hardcover. We're gonna cover
Soft cover. There is no hard cover.
Oh, sorry, soft cover. Mine didn't come.
Cover.
I pre-ordered it, and I made the mistake of adding a spray paint to my order, which slows it down.
It has to ship by ground. Yep.
Yeah, so I won't have it till probably the day after. I wanted it Monday, so I had it for the podcast, so I didn't need to use my iPad. The one thing I do want to talk about this, and I want to get it out of the way, is probably the only negative thing, and John and I both feel this pain.
Oh, yeah.
So do you want to explain this, John?
Emailed customer support for this is that if you purchased the General's Handbook through iBooks and pre-ordered it, like a lot of us did, because we're all in waiting for it to come out, you didn't get the points values in the app. You had to buy the General's Handbook through the app.
Yeah.
Subsequently, it was also $3 cheaper to buy it through the app, because it was $21.99 to buy it through the app and $24.99 to buy it through iTunes.
Something
So
like
it
that.
was $3 cheaper, and you got the points in the app. So I emailed customer service. They said they think it's a glitch, and that the team was working on it. I don't think so.
I
It's
don't
not a
think
glitch.
so.
It's not a glitch.
Yeah.
No.
So I don't know how if they can or whatnot link the two together. I asked for a refund because I bought it through the app as well, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, I bought it twice. I know Chris has still got one up on me because he bought it 3 times, but
Well, I don't like, so I'm into it. So I was like, I want the iBooks one because I know that it comes out on midnight on the Friday, and with Capital City coming up, I was like, I need this book now. Like, I can't work off these pictures, these bootleg pictures anymore.
Yeah.
It's
was
not
the only one
thorough.
that waited up. I was in the Facebook chat at 12:05 and said it's downloaded, and I got nothing. Crickets.
Yeah, I went to bed. I was like, because I woke up the next morning and started writing the pack. But so I got an iBooks. I was like, oh, okay. I'm sure that the app will just get the points for free. I want it on my iPad without needing the internet. And then I bought the book because I wanted a book to give people at the event if they need a reference, things like that. So I said, oh, whatever. And then, as you say, it came out, and I was like, I have to buy this in the app to get the points in the app. And I'm kind of OCD, and I want the points in my app. And because when I'm sitting there, when I'm walking to work, because I have a 40-minute walk, if I want the points, I want to be able to, on my iPhone, check it out and make an army list if I get some OCD. Like, sometimes I think of an army list, and I can't stop thinking about it until I actually finish it, right? Like,
You
it's
may
just
have a problem.
Have you ever done that?
I do.
You go to bed?
I've woken up and made army lists in Battlescribe before.
Yeah, because then you can go to sleep. Because
Yeah.
if you don't make the list, because you're like, I wonder if these 4 items work together. I'm gonna
Will this fit? Will I be a point over?
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, I gotta actually make the list. Oh, it doesn't work, and then you go to bed and you sleep great.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about that book later on.
That's a new level of dense.
Yeah, we're
Green's
special.
like, I've never done that. I'm
Nope.
sure you have back in the day. But right on. So there's this new Battletome Dominion of Chaos that's up for pre-order. I tried to get some more information on it. Don't have too much. But the GW released a plethora of start collecting boxes for Age of Sigmar. So with the new release of this General's Handbook, they're like, let's get all these start collecting boxes out. They're all up for pre-order, so people can start their armies and actually start playing this game. Because I think I'm assuming they were struggling on sales for the longest time. Every store I ever talked to in North America anyway was
Yeah. So actually, there's an interesting note on that. So they recently did their quarterly earnings report, and they said that year over year, they actually finished their last the past years. It's been 1 year since AOS came out. They finished the last year of that with better sales for Age of Sigmar than Fantasy had for apparently several years prior.
Yeah, but
So-
fantasy was on the major decline.
Yes. So take that with a grain of salt, because I see this going around a lot, is that there was nothing released for fantasy for years other than End Times. So I'm not surprised.
That's also, there's a few new books like Dwarfs with a few new kits. But yeah, that's the
it's
thing.
very
It's like,
little.
and everybody owned all the models and all the old stuff, and the books were like the same, and there's so many bad units. And
Yep.
Yeah.
But
But
I mean,
I definitely think
point
that-
being, the game is selling better than I think a lot of people thought it was, and I think with this is going to be a big push.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that was so I can only speak from anecdotal evidence. A lot of people I know, we all jumped in, spent several $100s, and then stopped spending.
Yep.
So that could have been the initial year release, was a lot of us just going in and then stopping.
Yep.
So like if they wouldn't have released this General's Handbook,
It probably wouldn't have
maybe
had a
it would have
resurgence.
stopped. That's what I don't know for sure, right? England had their thing. They're getting big events, blah, blah, blah. But once you go to the 40K world, you just realize how small the fantasy and Age of Sigmar world is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think too, some of the kits that came out recently are absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, the kits are
right?
great.
And
Yeah.
there was people buying them, and then so like if you look at, I'm going to butcher this name, and pronunciation is as bad as yours, Chris, but Alariel. You look at her, that kit is gorgeous. People like it's sold out. You can't get it right now, right? Like it's out of stock on the GW website, and it's phenomenal. You'd have people buying that just to, just for the sake of having it. Like that beetle is awesome.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, and the fact that like just because she's a powerful woman
Yeah.
leader, and just her body was not. It was like she was like a powerful woman. Like that was very. It wasn't like the women of the past, right? Like little weak, big busty,
Yeah.
like small waist. She was like she's a real looking girl, which is like I
Yeah,
thought
they
was
did
a
a
really step in
wonderful
the right
job.
direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Age of Sigmar, I do have a 10-year-old daughter, and she's getting to the age now where she can. We've had a couple of sample games, right? Because that's what it's meant, right? AOS is for children, right? We all remember that.
Oh yeah.
It won our football pool last year. Somebody's handle AOS is for children. So, anyways,
He'll go on.
but she can, funnel her way through Age of Sigmar at a basic level, and so now I'm starting to consider, getting her a small army to play, and I wanted her to have an army that's predominantly female, and that's the Sylvaneth, right? She gets
Yep.
a big character that's a girl.
That
Right.
murders things.
That's all good.
Like
With the
she's,
power
like,
of nature,
really good,
it's
too.
Fern Gully, the army. It's perfect.
It's not Sisters of Battle, right?
No, there's no boob armor. It's okay.
And that's really awesome. And the thing I like about Age of Sigmar is too is like simplistically broken down into its elements. It's very basic.
Yeah.
But it's when you start, because you and I have and
Yeah.
Dan Platt, a few other guys, once you start stacking these rules and stacking these combos, these lists get very complex.
Yeah.
Almost more complex than some of the 8th editions. It's not like,
I-
okay, let's get this one spell off. It's like there's a lot of buffs.
So let's talk
so-
about that when we get to the General's Handbook, because I've got some thoughts on that I wanted to share.
Awesome. So we'll go back to the news then. So start collecting Ironjaw, start collecting Stormcast, Sylvaneth, Bloodbound, Flesh Eater Court, all came out.
The Flesh Eater
Awesome.
Court one is a sick deal. It's
It's a sick
really
deal.
good. It's really good.
The Stormcast and the Bloodbound one are not, because you're better off buying the starter set and splitting it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I could see if you don't want to do that. Like I already own 2 starter sets, so if I want to just maybe get some of the units in there, but I see where they're going. They had to release it. They're the factions that what are
Yeah.
they called? Like they're the premier factions for
Yeah,
this edition,
yeah, they're
so
the
they had to
headliners.
release it.
The Flesh Eater Core one's great though. It's like a box of Crypt Ghouls. It's 3 Crypt Ghouls, a box of normal, Crypt Ghasts, whatever the big ones are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A box of Ghouls and a Terrorgeist for $100.
Yeah.
Like
And
you're getting the Crypt Horrors. Those are the big ones. You're getting the Crypt Horrors for free, and that's a $50 box. It's a great deal.
And the awesome part about that one is, from my perspective, because I have a Flesh Eater Court somewhat army.
Yeah,
I need
same.
a few elements. But I look at that box, and 2 of those make an army.
Yeah, you've got everything you need for great synergy in that
Which is
list.
awesome.
Just
Yeah,
with this, it's very well put together.
It's like the AdMech one from 40K.
Yep.
You buy 2 of those, or even 3 of them, and it's like, boom, it's all useful in your army. It's
Yeah,
great.
well, you've got everything you need to run a war convocation just at a night, right?
Yeah.
It's well thought out.
Well, you need a few other little...
A couple other small things, but I mean overall, I'm pretty impressed with a lot of these. They've done a really good job with them.
Yeah, and the Sylvaneth one's pretty cool. It's just that, you're better off getting a buddy that wants Bloodbound. But I think Bloodbound's not... It's not very. I don't see it. So
Bloodbound? I don't think so. I mean, it's got all the appeal of Korn, which is really cool, but I think it's almost over the top. It's not like Korn was in Fantasy, and it's not quite like Korn is in 40K, right? You don't have the characters that you're super excited about. Like, there's no Karn the Betrayer in this, and on the Fantasy side, you, instead of having like big units of warriors and skull crushers, like skull crushers are, I haven't looked at the points yet,
well,
but
they are part of it. But yeah,
but I mean they're at least in all the other comp we've seen, skull crushers are terrible. So it's interesting. I mean, I prefer the look of the normal Warriors of Chaos to the Bloodbound guys. I think they're just a little too
cartoony.
Yeah, they're very cartoony for a game that's surprisingly grimdark. They're over the top.
Yeah, they're a little bit too maniacal. Like like they're just too, like, they're too frenzied. They're too, like, that's not them. They're too marauding. Like, they're just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just too. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm gonna maybe once my Stormcasts are done, which should be in a month or two, I'm gonna put together, like, if you follow Russ Veal on Twitter, he did like an abstract Bloodbound army where he did them in, like, I think it was like 3 days. He just did like blood effects on them and made them kind of like statues. I want to do something abstract and pump out a big Bloodbound army because I have a ton of them from starter sets. Mm-hmm. And that new board game comes out, has the 4 characters you need, and it's cheap. It's like $70. You get all 4 characters. So I think I want to put one of those armies together just to show, because that army's all about synergy and buffs and characters. And so maybe that's why it's not doing well, because people are just taking the units, running them up. They're not fully embracing the buffs, and that could be part of it.
Yeah.
We'll move on. The last piece of news I wanted to do, which I think is really cool, is that they did the Shattered Domain table, which is like their Age of Sigmar own battle board, which is, it's not my taste. It's kind of steampunky, Age of Sigmar-y table. But the wicked part about this is that they released 4 or 5 boxes with custom plastic bases for your army that match that table. Yeah. So now you can do a whole army that matches you can buy the GW battle board, do an army that matches it exactly with all their bases. They're $40 for a whole stack of them. Yeah. And what do you guys think of that?
I think it's great. I think GW's been, like, we've been going to third-party market for resin bases or pre-built bases for a long time, and I'm surprised it took GW this long to get into the market space. I'm actually pleasantly surprised by the price point of them, because when I look at the cost of a regular their regular bases, I don't know why you'd ever buy them. Like, if you look at, these 60 mil, regular base, it's 3 for $6.
Yeah.
Like, who would buy these?
Yeah.
So Chris and I have had this conversation many times. He doesn't quite see it that way, but I'm with you, John. I think the new bases are a fantastic deal. I really like that they've done it. It's a huge untapped part of the market for them.
There's a country that rhymes with vagina that you can get these from really cheaply.
That is true.
Regina.
So actually, interestingly, with the price of the GW basing kits, it's actually not that much cheaper to just get them from China. Yeah. It's amazing. Like, they're fantastic value.
Yeah, they're undercutting their competition in the resin market.
Yep, and they're probably still turning a profit. I mean, the things are cheap to make in that level of volume.
So I'm going to give a quick apology. The humming just stopped, I think, for you guys. I forgot to move my mic off my desk, so if the humming just stopped, I apologize for the first 10 minutes. Sorry about that.
So there is one thing we forgot for the AOS releases, and those are the new SnapFit boxes.
Yep.
So these are, I was blown away by the price on these. It's $20 a box.
You made a bet with me.
I did. I don't remember what I bet you.
Bet. You didn't bet me anything. You said something like you'd eat your... No, didn't he say that he would jump off his balcony?
No, I'm pretty sure I said I would eat a box of them, but that's probably not going to happen. Either way, it's $20, and you get, it's like 3 Retributors or 5 Liberators or 5 Bloodbound. It's the perfect addition to the new get started box, which is like 5 or 10 guys on each side, or you can add them on to the Age of Sigmar, like the $140 box. But yeah, they're super cheap. Now, the only thing that I think is still a little weird with this is the price gap between those and the actual models. Because if you buy a box of the Liberators or whatever the heck the normal Age, what are the normal Stormcast guys?
The
not
Liberators are the sword and board
Okay,
guys.
so if you buy a normal
Standard
box to Liberators, it's $60 for 5 guys.
Yeah.
If you buy
you
this,
get all the weapon.
you get all the
options.
weapons. If you get the snap fit ones that look identical, like they're the same as the ones that came with the White Dwarf, right? If you get the box of 5 of those for $20, it's a third the price. So you're paying $40 for weapon options. It just strikes me a little odd that there's that much of a price discrepancy. I think they probably would have been better to price them higher, but still at a sizable discount. I think that they may be putting the mark too low, because anybody who's picking those up is probably going to be a little turned off when they see the price of adding anything to the army.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm just going to say quickly, the difference between the two boxes is greater than just weapon options. There's a lot more different things you can do with the shoulder pads. It's like a full piece kit. It's like the Snap Fit Space Marines compared to the Space Marine
fair
tactical
enough.
box. There's a big difference, but I see your point as well. Now, the wicked thing that I like is this directly goes back to GW's new CEO when he said, I can't buy anything for like $10 or $20 in the GW store. This means you can go in and your mom can go, well, I want to get him one box of something, see if he builds it and see what he does.
Yep.
I think
here's $20.
The exact thing he did was he walked into the Games Workshop, one of their stores, and said, my child's going to a birthday present. I want to spend £20, which is, I mean,
$40.
Canadian conversion, right? But everything in the UK is more expensive. So you would spend if you went to the store and bought $20 of groceries in Canada, you would get the same thing for £20. It's essentially double. So, you'd spend about $20, $20 to $25 to send your child to a birthday party with a gift. And he walked into a Games Workshop and said, I can't buy anything in here for £20.
That's a good gift for a kid.
So it is a good gift. It is actually a box of miniatures. I can buy a can of spray paint or a few paints, but I can't actually buy a model kit for £20. So that's what it was to tackle. These, I'm actually holding one for those on the live stream. I'm sure that it's one of these snap fits, that's very similar. You get these for free for walking into a GW. Like if there's they'll do a little paint session or a little paint tutorial. So I went with my kids into the Square One Games Workshop when we were there, and there you can, just kind of walked in to look around, and there's a painting session that anybody can do, and these are free. So it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same one.
This is pink and painted pink and light and teal, so it's better than how Ron paints.
Yeah, this is John's entry into Golden Demon this year, by the way.
That's right. But you know what? I can see how they're so cheap. If they're giving them away for nothing in stores, I'm sure they can sell 10 of them for $15.
It's 5 of them for 20. But it's still a good. It's a good.
It's a really, really good move.
It's a good move in the right direction. It's like I can't say anything negative about it. So the last thing is, and I forget what the rule is. I didn't link the picture in the show notes. Maybe Logan knows. Season of War came out, which is their campaign pack, and the coolest thing is today, what just dropped, is the Khorne guys get a boost till July 27th. Yeah. So if you're playing a campaign game and you play Khorne Bloodbound, you get I forget what the boost is. Do you have it up?
+1. Nope. You have to reroll ones to wound.
Yeah, you get to reroll ones to wound. All Khorne Bloodbound for the next 5 days.
Is this like their in-store campaign thing, like Eye of Terror or something?
Sorry, for the next 1 day, as of recording this, till tomorrow. You get, so if you go in for a camp, and it's because they achieved some objective or something like that, or maybe they were weaker. But so next week
they're weaker. I've heard that because the camp season of season of war is on right now, and I think Order is winning. From what I've heard reported that. Is that the Order side is winning at this point.
Okay. Which makes sense, because everywhere I go, I think Order makes up 60% of the... That's a random stat, but it makes up a significant portion of the armies.
Order's a huge number of the armies, though. So.
Yeah, because Stormcast were the new hotness, so people are buying... If they're buying new armies, they're buying Stormcast armies, right? Or they're playing their old armies, and if they're playing their old armies... like 80% of them went into the Order category, right?
Yeah.
Like even stuff that traditionally wasn't Order, like
Dark Elves,
right? Now on that side, so yeah, that makes sense.
Well, they wanted to get rid of the elves, right? They wanted to make them 3 factions of elves was silly, and I agreed with that. I just think that's awesome. I'm not playing in the campaign personally, but when I see that flag come up, I was like, whoa, that's cool. So next thing we're going to go on to 40K. Logan, you got anything to say about 40K rumors or?
Yeah, so there's more plastic Horus Heresy boxes coming out, but not a game, just straight Horus Heresy boxes. So if you want your whatever it is, Mark 3, Mark 4 power armor. I don't know my 30k, man. But if you want your old school Space Marines for your Horus Heresy, or you just want to use them for 40k, they are there. They're coming out. I think there's Space Marines. There's more Terminators.
They're super expensive.
More
You're
Space
better off
Marines.
just buying 2 Calf boxes.
Oh
to
yeah.
be honest.
Oh, I hadn't seen the prices.
Yeah. So that's the issue. Is the 30k is making an appearance in GW stores. It's a new package. It's like a black package box.
It's sleek
it's
boxing.
Not 40k.
It's a really nice boxing.
So I'm wondering if the Forge World line is going to move over to GW mainstream.
I think it's about time if they do, right? Like, there's no reason for them to operate as 2 separate companies.
Yeah. Especially when Forge World released all of the Legion books into one iBooks download now.
Yes.
Traditionally, you couldn't
yes.
get any Forge World on iBooks, but now I can, which is amazing.
Yeah, they've done it. Everything that's happened in the past year makes me really excited, which is scary. But anyway, past that, there are some rumors of what's coming up in air quotes 8th edition of 40k. Is sort of end timesy. We'll see what that means in game terms. I don't think they'll make the same mistake again.
Logan, get nervous.
Yeah, I am. I always am with GW, man.
Logan's like
brace for impact.
An app is gonna come out. Actually, if they release an app with free rules, that'd
be great. So that's the thing. So that's the exact rumor, is that as they move forward, they're going to take an Age of Sigmar style thing for this. You're going to have free unit rules, but you pay for your formations. Which, sure, it's cheaper than it is now, so why the hell not? But yeah, so there's going to be an advancement in the story. Things are going to change. There's going to be a whole bunch of mini campaigns. So like we've had the Kalyan box, stuff like that. So, Tau versus Raven Guard or whatever. Those are going to stop just being sort of one-off things or things that have built up to 40k history. They're actually going to start moving the storyline along with that and get closer to what's been dubbed like the 2 minutes to midnight thing. So just on the verge of the end of civilization. So should be interesting. We'll see what happens.
Abaddon needs to die or get a new model. That has to happen.
So Abaddon has popped up in the
model,
rumors. So we'll see. Maybe he will.
That's what he did come up. He's the big arc right now, and they kind of moved away from him, but he's got to die.
You know what, Chris? Maybe we'll see Chaos Space Marines get an update.
Oh.
No, we won't.
Anything from the ITC, Logan?
No, nothing really. Couple events going on. We got ours coming out that we'll talk about. You may see/hear me on Signals from the Front Line the next week or two. I'm just going to be on there briefly chatting with Frankie. Yeah, not too much on that side.
Cool.
Oh, no, they have a new terrain piece they've released. It's their urban building. It's a smaller one now. So check that out. They've got their 2-for-1 deal, I think. 3 for 2,
awesome.
something or
If
other.
you're going to buy their terrain, you either buy it right away or you buy it as like a bulk tournament.
Yeah, so their bulk, that's actually a good point. If you buy 10 or more units of anything, you can get and it's for an event, specifically for an event, you can get a TO discount, which is a pretty good deal.
Cool, so we'll go on to the event spotlight, and I got big news, and I know everybody's like, we're sick of hearing about Capital City. Well, it's 3 more weeks away, man. Leave us alone. It's our big gaming convention in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Age of Sigmar is actually technically officially sold out.
Woo!
There's 1 ticket left for sale, and it's basically Toonstra's. He just has to register. I don't know what's taking him, because he won last year. He got his... In Age of Sigmar, we gave away a free ticket last year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's got his free entry.
So it's his, but good news is we're probably going to add 2 more spots. But yeah, Age of Sigmar sold out. I actually got messages from people being like, wow, you sold out an Age of Sigmar event in Ontario. That's crazy. And I was like, well, it's not that big. But they're like, that's unheard of. I can't believe that you did that. And I was like, well, this new book's helping. But
yes, yeah, it is.
I think just even us just staying positive, telling people to keep going, worked.
Preaching the good word.
Yeah, I put a lot of work in that pack. It didn't need a lot of fixes, so I'll kind of save that for when we get to the section in the General's Handbook. We are using all the new comp.
Yep.
I did make a few fixes and tweaks, just because you have to. I feel you still do. They're very minor. You guys will like it. We are using the scenarios out of the new book, and I stole from, and I give them props in the pack. I stole from the CanHammer guys their secondary mission objective, which is you get 6 objective cards, and you have to pick which one to use when you deploy. Throughout the whole tournament, you have to use each one once. So it allows people to maybe pick a scenario, because they're all published in advance. So if you are like, that scenario, I'm basically losing. Because they're all so different that I think 1 or 2 of them you're going to struggle with. So you can save the really good secondary cards to play on that mission and get points.
Cool.
That was my theory. They did a great job. I did modify theirs. They're not word for word because they don't actually apply a lot of them anymore. But
Hmm.
check it out. Our PAX Online, the Age of Sigmar doubles has been canceled, sadly. Nobody signed up. All the groups that are coming in are only coming in for the singles.
Yep.
We kind of expected that. Even 40K doubles was much lower than the actual event, right?
Well, yeah, it's lower than singles, yeah. So 40,
Yeah.
it's on a Friday. I think that's the biggest part of it. That's it. The 40K numbers are looking great. So we're three and a half weeks out. We've got 34 people signed up for 40K singles. We have, I believe, 11 teams signed up for the 40K doubles. So still pretty healthy.
Pretty good.
Pretty healthy. So if you're looking to come out, we are definitely a GT level event for ITC. I think Major is going to be a stretch this year, but we're going to keep trying. So tell your friends. The room rate at the hotel is no longer available, but if you know you're coming, the non-refundable rate is still there, and it's the same price or cheaper than the group rate was. So you're still good to go there, and I'm almost positive there's space in the hotel. So
yeah, it might be
check
like
it out.
a few bucks. I think it was like $5 cheaper, but it's like you have to pay up front, and it's non-refundable.
Yeah, it's non-refundable.
But it's awesome. We're at the UI Center. It's a $12,000 venue. We're not paying that for it, but it's
Thank God.
gorgeous.
It's amazing.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. We got a bunch of pictures from last
and
year
two buffets.
up on there. Yeah, we do have catered lunches on the Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah,
So
one
check it out.
sandwich and soup and stuff. The other one's pizza and soup and stuff. No
Something
soup.
like
No
that.
soup this year. Sorry, no soup this year.
No soup.
I screwed up.
Nobody
It's
had the soup last year.
Sandwich and salads. Nobody ate soup last year. Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah.
Good air conditioning, good washrooms. It's awesome. Jason and I might have just dropped $3,000 or $4,000 on terrain, so
the
we
tables-
like to pride ourselves that the tables are nice, but
Yeah.
we actually invested a ton this year to make our terrain even better.
Yeah, the tables are going to be great. You got 6 feet of like this venue's enormous, right? We got 6 feet of space between each and every table. You're not rubbing asses with anyone, and that's that's set up with space for capping out at 60 people for 40K. 20 people for Age of Sigmar, and I think like 96 simultaneously for War Machine.
Which is not. I don't know what happened. Nope. War Machine
nobody
players
signed up
say it's
for
too
it.
expensive. Yeah.
So if you
All
know
the
War Machine players,
greased on us.
sign up. We want you at our event. We think you're really going to like it. It's being run by one of the local press gangers, so
And
it's
he's
not.
awesome.
Yeah, he's great. It's not us running it. Like, it just happens to be in our event. So check it out. If you
They
have
won't play
questions
it.
about
They say
it,
it's too expensive. They won't pay, they won't pay $81 for 2 buffets and a 2-day tournament. Actually, they get 3 days, I think, for like $100, but
yeah,
120 or something.
Yeah.
But they get 3 full days of tournament, 2 buffets. And they won't pay that. It's
I don't
too
know, man.
expensive. So
Anyway,
I'm sorry. I'm like half of our budget is 50% of our budget is food. So
yeah,
it's cheaper than going out to eat, man. Like McDonald's is going to cost you $20 probably for 2 days. But
yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Moving along.
Yeah, so we're going to move on. We're actually going to skip the lore review segment for this because it doesn't really apply to Age of Sigmar anymore. We are in the works right now with... There's some new stuff coming down the pipe that'll allow us to do certain abilities and certain race reviews that are like small sections that are going to be released in the future. So for Age of Sigmar, stay put for that. But we didn't want to throw in a 40K lore into an Age of Sigmar gaming podcast, I guess you'd say. So we're actually going to take a quick break. In about a few minutes, we'll be right back to talk about the General's Handbook.
Good.
And we're back. So, this is, I don't know, we're going to do our best. We're going to talk a lot about this over the next year, I'm sure of it. We're in like fanboy mode, so I'm going to apologize in advance if we're going to like, this is awesome, so cool, man.
We waited a year for this. I have.
Yeah.
But since this came out, it's changed my whole gaming experience when it comes to Age of Sigmar, because it's no longer like, oh, what pack is that? What's that do? People are like, hey, Chris, what do you take in your Stormcast? It's like, oh, I take these 3 units. Oh, I'm like, but really, it's like, is that relative? Like that might not even be legal if we had points, right? Because it's crazy expensive. And actually, my Stormcast part of it was I had to drop some stuff, right? But it's awesome. So the General's Handbook came out. Now, this has been somewhat leaked a while, and people knew it was coming out, and other podcasts had their reviews, and we're not going to worry about that, because a lot of people that listen to us live in Ontario, live in Canada, and US and Europe, but they're usually the type of guys that listen to us are like more into the tournament game, into the competitive side. They don't want the fluffier side, the nuttier side of the Age of Sigmar. They want to know, like what's good. Like, 90% of the emails that I get are like, Chris, tweak my list. What's good in this army? What do I do? And so we're going to kind of take that kind of stance when we look at this book. We're only concerned about playing competitively. So sorry for anybody that wants to hear about the ladder section, but you can listen to GarageHammer. He goes through everything in detail. Really good. And he focuses away from the competitive side, which is... So we'll focus in on there. But yeah, so General's Handbook comes out. Wicked book. What did they add? I guess we'll give it to you, Green. So what's the General's Handbook?
Sure, the General's Handbook really is 3 different ways to play the game. There's open play, which is essentially what we had always in the past, was Age of Sigmar was first released, is play with your buddies, take what you think is good, try to balance off each other and play. We all know the limitations of that. Specifically if you're trying to show up on a Thursday night gaming at a store and you have never met your opponent before.
They added in battle plans.
They added in battle plans and some things, right? Then there's a second, the second way to play is called narrative play, which is really along campaign games. These can be a lot of fun. You can sit down, it'll tell you, what armies you should be. This is recreating some kind of battle or a storyline. The armies are usually pre-built and are balanced against each other. They can be a lot of fun and good for an hour and a half introductory game or whatnot, and are good for if you just want to play in a different style other than a tournament game. And then, what we've all been waiting for so long is the last one is matched play. Yeah. And it gives us back competitive gaming, in a sense, that adds points values to various armies. And you can say to your opponent, show up, or in tournament-style games, we're going to play 1,500 points, 2,000 points. There's composition requirements around battle line units, which used to be your old type of core. There's your number of heroes that you can take, the number of artillery pieces you can take, the number of behemoths or monsters that you can take. So there's structure so that your army looks like an army, essentially. Your army doesn't consist of 20 dwarven flame cannons that are all deployed along the back line shooting at people.
And they're like cardboard barrels glued together, and you're like,
Hey, I actually have infantry guys that would actually consist in a real army, right? So
it's funny that we were talking about, we're going to get to this in a bit. Mike Strang and I were talking today about what's the best, core choice. It's called Battle Line. I didn't want to spoil it. But what's the best, what do you take? And it's we're like, if you take order, these are the 3 best units to take in every order. And so we've already started this drooling over it. Yeah.
Right? It's reignited those discussions. I mean, a lot of us, but it gives that structure so that you don't have to know your opponent. Are the points 100% accurate? And the answer has been covered a million times, is absolutely no, it's not. Right? They're not. There's no mathematical formula that says my Plague Bearer is worth 7.8 points and your Dwarven Warrior is 11.3. It just doesn't work that way. But they're very good estimates as to what stuff is approximately worth. Yes, there's stuff that's going to be better than other things, but at least you get some kind of structure. And the big one for me is that we've already talked about. A lot of us play on gaming nights in our local gaming stores. Wednesday night at Forbes or whatever for us, for Age of Sigmar, we show up.
You should be shout out Forbes Hobbies, Cambridge, Ontario.
But you show up, play 2,000 points, and I don't have to know the guy that I'm playing. Yes, I'm going to be nice to him. Yes, we're going to have some, some good collegial discussion. What do you play? What do you like? Can I buy a pop? That type of stuff. But I didn't have to play the guy 20 times to try and figure out that, hey, that unit keeps running over my whole army. Don't take it next time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it gives you that balance. So those are the three things that are really in the three different types of ways that are in the General's Handbook. With the match play we got, as you already mentioned, we get some scenarios that six.
So I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to interrupt you there. So we're going to start off. Ladder campaigns started. We're not going to talk about campaigns because we're not a campaign show.
No.
Ladder of Command, same thing. It's all based around campaigns and having games that feed into other games. So we're going to start with the first section that we really cared about, and I'm sure that we all skipped to, was tournament games.
It's the only one I've read.
Yeah, I've skimmed.
I'm not much different, Logan.
Yeah.
Show me the points for the chaos lists.
Exactly. So actually, before we go on to this, there is one thing I want to note: is that the folks who made this, for the most part, are the guys. It's a bunch of guys from different podcasts in the UK that got brought in. So it's like CanHammer's Bad Dice. It was.
I think they were brought in more so because they ran the largest Age of Sigmar tournament in the world.
Well, okay, yeah, granted, but a lot of this comp and a lot of the points are very, very similar to how SCGT was done.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So keep in mind that when it's not like GW's old, let's just arbitrarily choose points and throw them in the air and see if it works. This is stuff that's actually had some thought put into it and some testing.
Play test. And actually, technically, South Coast GT went through at least 5 or 6 revs where they, maybe not that many, but they changed points.
Yeah.
So it was a basis on that. And as Green says, it's not perfect, but we'll get into that. So the first thing is they said tournament games are competitive, blah, blah, blah. Give a whole pitch on this. They said pitch battle. So there's actually 3 ways to play. Now, you're not restricted fully to these 3 ways. First one is Vanguard, Battle Host, and War Host. And the one thing that I really like is that they said, They didn't even define them. They just said, you can play 3 ways, and this is the average length it takes to play them.
Yes.
And that was huge to me. I was like, oh, Vanguard, which we'll talk about in a second, is 1.5 hours. Battle Host is 2 to 2.5. And a War Host is about 3.5 hours. So I immediately look at that as a teal, go, oh, I don't know, I like 2-hour games. 2.5 hours, I start losing interest. I don't know about you guys. So I said Battle Host is probably what I want to do.
Yep.
Yeah. But realistically, when we look at those are 1,500, 2,000, and 2,500 point games.
1,000, 2,000, and 2,500, and 3,000.
All right.
We're gonna get there. I'm just kidding. Because it's funny because
and I'm watching.
I sent John my list. He's like, "That's illegal," and I said, "No, it's not. It's 2,000 points. I get 6 heroes, John." So we'll move on. So before we get into the restrictions and the army building guidelines, there's the 3 rules that are very important now.
3 rules of 1.
What are they, John?
All right, 3 rules of 1. So the first one, I don't remember them exact. I know what they are. I just don't remember them in the exact order they're listed.
Summary them is do your best. I put you on the spot.
So here we go. So the first one is a roll of a dice of 1 fails. So in narrative play and open play, you could get auto things happening where you couldn't roll a result that didn't work.
Yeah.
So now natural rolls of 1 fail for everything, which has always been the case in every GW game I've ever played. Yeah. So I'm glad to see it back because
hallelujah, I love it.
Yeah, this fixes so many problems.
Yeah. Then the next rule of 1 is that you can only cast a spell once per the hero phase, essentially, right?
Per turn rather than per wizard.
Yeah. You can only cast a spell once. So this nerfs the problem that you had with summoning in the past and being able to summon pink horrors in perpetuity. It also stops some of the really nasty spells from being chain cast multiple times. You can't take 3 Lords of Change in order to get Gateway off 3 times.
You can't stack the +1 armor save either. That's a huge
the big one. That's
the big one. Yeah, the big one is you can't
shield.
Shield and get the 1-up invulnerable. Basically, you can't be hurt, right? And so that's the third rule of 1. Sorry, the second rule of 1. The last rule of 1 is.
Do you want me to take over? You forget?
I got it.
Okay, Logan's got it.
All right. Any extra attacks, hit rolls, or wound rolls gained by the use of an ability cannot generate extra attacks. So you can't get like endless predatory fighter kind of thing.
You can't get
That was for Riperdactyls.
Riperdactyls especially.
We played that test game, Nick and I. And
they're
brutal. Like, I just keep rolling until your unit disappears. And I was like, oh.
Let's fix that.
It lists Riperdactyls in the book as the example.
Yeah, it does.
because that's like one of those things that fell through the cracks, and it's like, oh, and they got to re-roll, and you're just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move on to the next one. Is they basically decided, okay, we're gonna split up armies into types of units, which makes sense, right? Because you're like, before it was like, just take what you want, but so now they have these things to say. So there's 3 types of games, as we said: 1,000, 2,000, 2,500. Now you can of course work within these. So you could say we're gonna play a Vanguard army and we're gonna play 1,500. You don't have to stick to it. It's kind of like you could even do, we're gonna do Vanguard, but do 1999 points so that you're cutting back some of the characters and artillery if you wanted to, right? It's kind of like the old system that we're used to, where the bigger the points, the more core choices you got to take. So the first one is they've basically made characters, they call them leaders now. You get 1 to 4 in a Vanguard army, you get 1 to 6 in a battle host, and 1 to 8 in a war host. So you have to take a character. And that can be a bad thing for some armies because they're points that just die. Guy has 2 trebs, guy's a hell cannon, guy has archers, your character's dead. Then they said battle line units, which are actually surprisingly very few.
Yes, there's very limited of them. Stuff that used to be core doesn't fit into any of them. It's really, there's 1 to 2 per sub-faction per se, right? Like if you take Chaos, for example, and you take Nurgle, Plague Bearers are the only battle line unit, right? Same with Tzeentch, you can take Pig Horrors, but if you take certain requirements, then other units potentially could become battle line. So in the Tzeentch one, if you take only sub-faction Tzeentch, then I think the Flaming Chariots also become battle line.
Oh, that's cool.
And the Bloodbound, if you take a Khorne Lord and all Bloodbound mortals, there's like a few keywords, then you get Skull Crushers as battle line as well. So these are like a core unit, and so this goes back to the conversation that Mike Strang and I were having, is that we were talking about like Judicators being one of the best battle line units for the Order faction. They're archers that are somewhat tough, can sit on objective, 24-inch range. It's not bad, right? Yeah. 3 units of them are 360 points for 3 units. That's too low. No, it's higher than that. It's like 4 something. But off the top of my head,
most battle lines are units that I've seen tend to be around 100 points, like between 100,
120, 140. You're right. It's around that. I think it's 360 for 3 units of archers. They're fantastic. So anyway, you need 2+ in a Vanguard, 3+ in a battle host, 4+ in a war host. And as I said, if you're like, well, I really want to play a Blood Crusher army or Skull Crusher army, you can do it now. Like there's certain units that can, and there's bonuses to taking sub factions, because everybody would get bored. It's a Grand Alliance, so every Chaos Player is a Hell Cannon. Well, that may eliminate you from taking certain units as battle line, which could hurt you, make you take attacks. Next is artillery, is 0 to 2, 0 to 4, 0 to 5. Behemoths. I was gonna say Behemoths. I was like, that's not even how it's spelled, Chris. What's wrong with you? 0 to 2 for Vanguard, 0 to 4 for Battle Host, 0 to 5 for War Host. And then other units, you can take any number you want, as long as you meet the minimum of... We're playing Battle Host mostly, because it's the 2.5 hours. So as long as you take 3 battle line units, 1 character, you can take anything else you want. Which is cool, right? That's like... The armies look very similar to 8th edition armies after this, right?
They do, yeah.
Now, the big rule, somebody want to talk about what understrength units are? Because I know that, I think it was Nick was giving us, he was kind of not ticked off about this. Was it Nick or Caleb?
No, so this was actually one of the big complaints I got when we said we were using South Coast GT for Bloodbath, because this is one of the carryovers from that. So, for all the point costs for different units, there is a set amount. So, let's say, like, arbitrarily, it's 3 crypt horrors are like 120 points or something, 140 points. You can take less than that. You can take 1 crypt horror, still 140 points.
Yeah.
If you want to take 6 crypt horrors, it's 240. If you want to take 5 crypt horrors, it's 240. Yeah. It's basically you pay the point cost for that multiple and any amount up to that. So,
but the interesting thing is that all of those amounts are as GW sells them. So if you look at the Bretonnian ones, they're 16. You buy archers in 16-man blocks and men-at-arms in 16-man blocks. So it changes. Like a lot of people would buy the 16-man, put like a 5-man unit filler or whatever, 4-man unit filler, make it 20 back in the 7th Ed days.
Yep.
You don't need to do that anymore because you can only buy, and it's actually I think good for GW because you buy the box, that's the unit, that's the points. There is no.
I could never figure out why they sold Bretonnian Knights in units of 8.
Yeah.
That was frustrating.
It should have been 9 because then you get 3 ranks in the.
Well, you take 2 ranks of 3, 1 of 2, and then your character, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But like even things like Cryptors, you would want like 10 of them or something.
Yeah,
and
they
you're
came in
like,
boxes
well,
of 3.
and they came in boxes of 3. So if you want 10, you had to have 2 that you didn't use, or you had to use unit fillers. So I get it, and it works. It's fine. So the only people that are going to complain about that are, I think, are people with legacy armies that are like, I have units of 30 of this, right? Because I did conversions or I bought, and it's like, well, okay, deal with it, I guess.
Yeah.
Next one is reinforcement points, and I know this really affects you, John. So do you want to talk about reinforcement points?
Yeah. Okay.
Or Logan can if he wants.
No, go for it, John. I really like what they've done with
really
this.
The one talking about this, and I love it.
Yeah. All right. So, as in Legacy days, we would take you'd take a 2,000 point army. Summoning now comes out of your army list. So essentially, what happens is they're called reinforcements. Summoning any mechanic that puts a model on the board that wasn't necessarily there to start with.
Yeah, so it doesn't add to a unit. We should distinguish that. If you add to a unit, like zombies, you lose them, you get D6 back. That doesn't count towards this.
Yeah, there's certain formations that essentially heal, for a lack of better, phrasing other than that. But if you can summon a unit or somehow gain reinforcements, I'm thinking of like the Chaos Lord or Karnak, the named Blood Cornhound, where a unit comes on when you get close to a certain model. Those count as reinforcements. So at the beginning of the game, or when you're submitting your list, you can submit a list that even though the tournament or a game may be, let's say, 2,000 points, you can submit a list that's 1,500 points, and then you can say, I have 500 points of reinforcements, and what you can do is you can bring on 500 points of other models, essentially, during the game via summoning mechanics or reinforcement type things. So it gives you the opportunity to create some tactical flexibility, as a few of us were saying. Like, so for example, myself, when I started reading this and going through and saying, well, I'm playing in this 2,000 point tournament, I can take 1,100 points worth of demons, and then 900 points I can leave for summoning. And if I want to do some summoning shenanigans, and let's say, for example, your army is a dwarven combat army, and I'll just use that as an example. You take a dwarven combat army. Well, I'm summoning all flamers to shoot you off the table because you're moving at 4 inches a turn, maybe running at me at max 10 inches a turn. Maybe your army is a shooting army, so I'm going to try and summon in resilient combat troops like plague drones or beasts of Nurgle, or something that's going to be able to withstand that firepower and then charge you. And once you're in combat with you, it's going to, your shooty troops, even in Age of Sigmar, don't fight very well. So, but it gives you some tactical flexibility as to what you need to deploy. But you're starting off the game with a smaller list.
But it's good too, because you and I were talking about characters. So if you have a character like a Zinch Herald, and you're like, man, the guy dies turn 1. There's no cover. He's going to die. Or you guys, so you just put him in your summoning pool. You start your resilient units on the board, and then you summon that guy on. Yeah. And as you said, it also means your reinforcements, when you summon them, they come on near the enemy. You can be like 12 inches ahead of me, so I can move up turn 1, boom, drop my plague drones in like flame cannon range and just charge you, right?
Exactly. So there's quite a lot of stacking ability. We start looking at characters that give bubble effects or buffs. Well, often the first thing anyone's going to do is shoot your characters off the table. Well, if you have this reserve mechanic, I can take my plague drones and my plague bearers and my beasts of Nurgle and march them across the table, and then summon that plague bearer hero in when essentially I'm already in combat with you. So then all the buffs go off, and my guys made it across the table. The plague bearer hero made it there, and all of a sudden people are re-rolling ones to wound, or they're doing double damage. If you're just look at the abilities from I've been looking at Nurgle lists, so I can speak to that one. But if units of plague drones are within 7 inches of a plague bearer hero, any 6 plus to wound results in mortal wounds. Plague beasts of Nurgle, if they're within 7 inches of a plague bearer hero, they do double damage when they attack somebody. Mm-hmm. But that plague bearer hero is never going to make it across the table because your opponent's going to shoot him off, unless You get in his face, summon the Plague Bearer hero behind the army, and they didn't get that chance, right? So it gives that mechanic to give some different units some more survivability, I guess. And sometimes, you deploy at the beginning of the game, your opponent pulls off some kind of trick you've never seen before and think, wow, I could really use a unit on the left side of the table, right? You can summon it up over there.
And one of the big things about it, too, is the way that that's set up is it makes the armies different. One thing I found in 8th edition is, like, you'd always set up your army, you kind of play. Whereas this is, like, demons, even though, like, they're very different because they're, as you just said, lots of summoning. Whereas if you played mortals, they're just all on the board, they run at them, except for if you take the commander on foot and he gets the reinforcements behind the enemy. But, like, Seraphon are distinctly different. They do lots of summoning. They're going to bring their stuff on. They're going to have a small army and that's going to come on. Stormcast have the teleport mechanic, which is unrelated to this, but Undead do the summoning. So it changes, like, you can actually be like, well, I want to play a different style of game. I'm going to play this army instead of kind of the samey, which I really like about it. Yeah. I think it's awesome, too. It does have its, if you have a big collection of demons painted, it does reward you. John can show up to my tournament with 5,000 points of demons, put them there, and he can have a 900-point summoning pool and summon whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah, but it would go really well right now. My Bloodthirster, right?
It's true.
Oh, here he is, right? Like that's how it works, right?
But it's fluffy, and we got to assume that the stuff is pointed appropriately to matter. And you can only summon 1 unit a turn. Like, so you could have 10 units of Beast of Nurgle in reserve. You can only cast that spell once, so it's not like you're spamming it. You can
summon multiple units in a turn but it's summon Bloodthirster or something. But you can't spam the same.
You can't spam the same unit. Yeah, there's only so many great units.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we talked about this, but you can only summon up to the maximum amount of points you took off your list, right?
Yes.
So if you're playing at 1,500 points, so you're playing at 2,000, you field 1,500. You can never go past 2,000 points on the field.
That's period.
Which is great.
It's not even that you can only summon 500.
Yeah, you get your reserve.
So even if they die, you can't summon back up to 2K.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so it's literally just a mechanic that says part of your army is not on the table, and you get to choose whatever the hell you want from that and bring it on.
So I guess it's a sideboard for summoning armies.
Summoning armies get a sideboard out of their main army, which is it's cool though because they're different then. Yeah.
And there's still risk reward for it, right? Like you can still flub those spells to bring stuff on, especially if you're putting big stuff like Terrorgeist or something.
Hey, I really need this unit of Plague Drones over here, and Snake Eyes, right? They're not showing up. Yeah.
But and then another interesting thing is like if I take 2 trebuchets and I know that there's like I could just blast his character off and he can't summon now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you have to take redundancies in your summoners to make sure it works, and it's cool.
Pink horrors.
So we're gonna move on. They added a rule in, which is really cool. I'll just go over it quickly. Monsters in cover. Monsters don't get cover saves. I was like, I didn't expect that.
But it makes sense.
But it makes sense. I didn't expect it. It's cool. So guys like Archeon, the big, huge Grublies that would like go in cover and buff their save by 3 and be unkillable, they're not so good anymore, right?
Yeah.
But they're still amazing. But it is what it is. Next thing is Triumphs, and I love this mechanic. Absolutely. Oh. So basically, when you deploy your army, and summoning pools count towards this, I'm not gonna even listen to anybody that says differently. So if I bring an army that's let's say 1950 points, and I couldn't buy anything for 50 points that I wanted, and John shows up with a 2,000 point army, a 1,500 point army, 500 point summoning pool, I'm technically underpointed. So I could be underpointed by 1 point, I could be underpointed by 10. It doesn't matter. I'm still underpointed. I get to roll on the Triumph table. Triumph table is a D6. It's basically a D3, actually.
It is a D3.
On a 1-2, it says D6, John. Come on, get with the times. On a 1-2...
How many results are there?
On a 1-2, you can reroll all the failed to hit rolls made for your 1 unit in your army, 1 combat phase. Pretty good. Number 2 is you can reroll all failed to wound rolls, so it's 3 or 4. You can reroll for 1 unit for 1 phase. And then 5-6 is you can reroll all failed saves made for 1 unit in your army. So if I'm underpointed by, let's say, 5 points, which is really nothing.
Yep.
That one crucial turn where I want my Death Star to live, because they got buffed their save, I can now reroll saves if I roll a 5 or 6. That's huge to me.
Yeah.
So that means that like when I design a list, now I'm giving my secret away, I'm designing it just a few points under everybody else, because most people design 2K. So I'm actually taking a couple
19
point hit if I can.
So
1989. You want to be that one guy that
one
Well, you
point
can't
below
do
it.
1 point
Odd
though.
number.
Like you
Yeah.
can't really do that in the points, as we'll
So-
see. But you can get 5 or 10 points under.
So here's a question, because this is going to come up for Bloodbath, Mr. T.O. When do you declare this? So you roll for it before the game, I assume. But do you just conveniently say halfway through your turn, okay, I'm going to reroll all my saves for this combat phase? Or do you have to declare it before the phase? Because it doesn't actually say it in the rules.
It says you can reroll all your failed save rolls made for 1 unit in 1 combat phase. So 1 combat phase, you just say, I'm doing it.
Do you say it before you roll them? Do you say it when you roll them? Do you say it after you roll them?
I get your point.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that.
So that's the kind of thing
I
that
would
we...
assume it's before you roll the dice.
Ooh, okay.
But
So
I
this
don't-
is the
but-
kind of thing
but
where,
no-
where
no
you're still
GW
going to need some comp on this.
But knowing GW, it probably doesn't matter. It's probably you
Yeah.
could roll it and then choose it. I think it's just a free ability you get at any time. And I think if we overcomplicated it, it might ruin it. Because I loved it. I never thought of that. Yeah, I thought you just... I just assumed, like, okay, this is the turn I need it. They're re-rolling their saves, right? But
Yeah.
you're right. If I rolled an anomaly and made them all, I wouldn't...
Because for 5 points, like that's a huge reward, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna shove Archaon into this combat or whatever. He's got a 2+ save. You've got Rend 3 on something. I don't know. Okay, I want to reroll all my saves this turn, but I'm only gonna say that after I fail my saves, not if he passes all of them with flying colors. So I think some risk reward on that, considering it can literally be a 1 point difference.
Yeah, it's weird because
Maybe worth looking into.
they fact modifiers as being after you roll the dice.
I guess maybe we roll that in with this. Anyway, food
Yeah.
for thought. Food
No,
for
it's
thought.
true because so that's another question that comes up a lot, but it's in the fact that people ask me is modifiers are like, so when you roll a dice and it says you reroll ones, people say, well, I get +1 to hit, so there's no ones. Well, the dice are modified after they're rolled and re-rolled.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that you could roll them and then do this. That's how I bet you GW would fact it that way.
Yeah.
But I'll think about it. This is not my final answer, and I'll add it to the pack. Next one is battle plans. So there's now 6 missions that they've added for tournaments. We're using them for Capital City, so they're all really good. Now, because a lot of our listeners that listen for AOS are probably going to come to Capital City or might be interested in coming, I think we can probably quickly go through these missions. Sound good with you guys?
Sure.
So, before we get into them, I'm kind of going in order here. This says, okay, battle plans. You get D6 battle plans. You can roll on it, but there's 6 of them. So we're playing 6 games. We're doing 1 of each. Under that, they have this house rules thing. And so I'm just going to read this, which I know is not right, like people don't like, but this sums up a lot of what it said. So it says, many tournaments will include tweaks and changes to the Warhammer Age of Sigmar rule sheet by insisting house rules. For instance, one of the most commonly seen house rules asks players to measure distances from base to base, ignoring limbs and weapons that hang over the edge of the model's base. This changes the dynamic of combat slightly, but can prevent carefully painted and modeled bases getting damaged as they are stacked on top of each other. Other house rules might modify how armies are chosen, how scenarios work, or anything else. Be sure to check the rules pack your event that you're attending. Great rule. Just their example about measuring base to base, to me, should be a rule in this. And that was one of the things I was like, oh, you guys didn't make that a rule? Oh my god. Because, and this is, I'll be like, oh man, it works. You just stack them on the bases. Not a big deal, Chris.
don't do it.
But it's not even that. It doesn't work because there's some models that literally cannot attack.
Yeah, that's my
They have a
favorite
reach
part.
of 1. They're mounted really high. They literally cannot attack anything. And that's why that doesn't work. And that's why I was very that was the only thing that really disappointed me, that rule was not in there. So Capital City, it's all measured to the base. And actually, we're going with the South Coast method, where it's a cylinder of the base to the top of the head of the model. So your model is almost ignored. It's a cylinder from the base to the top of the head. And that's what you measure your weapons to. Cool. So we're going to move on. First mission. Does anybody want to talk about this one, or?
You go first. I'm digging them up on the handbook here.
Oh, I'm the only one prepared.
I got
Okay,
it.
so it's basically called take and hold. Both players roll a dice. Reroll in the case of tie. The player that rolls higher decides which territory each side will use. The territories for the 2 armies are shown on the map, which we'll talk about. You basically alternate, setting up 1 unit at a time. Starting with the player that won the dice roll for territory. So it's standard deployment. You pick table side. You put a unit down first. Models must be set up in their own territory more than 12 inches from enemy territory. Standard GW Age of Sigmar stuff. You continue until all the armies are deployed. The player that finishes setting up their army first chooses who has first and second battle round. That's a big deal, and a common theme now is if you finish deploying first, it's assumed that you had maybe a worse advantage because you had fewer units, so the guy could out-deploy you. Things like summoning armies. So you get to choose to go first or second. So in John's army that he talked about, the summoning one, he can take 5 units and be like, I'm always going to go first. I'm never going to lose my summoner.
Do you do formations go down together?
No. Because it says units, unless the formation specifically says they do, the units go down individually and they just count as part of the formation.
Okay.
Because formations are just bonus rules added on. And you can't stack them. Units can't be part of 2 formations.
I know that was a part of various other comm systems that led up to going in here, that they gave people the alternative to deploy formations as individual units or the formation holistically. So I just wondered if it...
I'm going raw, and as I read it raw, it's 1 unit at a time unless the formation says otherwise.
Yep, I'd go with that.
And then, of course, there's triumphs. Basically, you can roll if both armies are set up and you have less points, you get a triumph. So the first one is basically the standard one where your pitch battle, you have 12-inch deployment zone from your own long board edge, and you play it out. Victory. So this battle is fought to control 2 objectives. The objectives are located at the center of each player's territory, 9 inches from the edge of the battlefield. You may wish to show their location on the battlefield with a small marker. Thank you. A player controls an objective if at the end of the game turn they have 5 or more models from their army within 6 inches of the objective, and there is no enemy models within 6 of it. That's interesting. So you need to have 5 or more models to score, but only 1 to contest. Now that's a big deal now, because a lot of people are emailing me for Capital City and asking, oh, is this list good? Is that list good? And I'm saying, you need 5 models in these objectives to score them. So think about that. Like, you need it. And it's a big deal because, like, you have 5 guys, I'm going to shoot them with archers, kill 1. So you're going to need to take bigger units to secure your objectives. It's kind of a common theme now, right? They're encouraging you to not go MSU. Starting from the 3rd battle round, 1 player immediately gains a major victory if they control both objectives. That's a big thing. So a lot of these scenarios, you win round 3 if you auto-hold both. If neither player has won by the end of the 5th battle round, or the time runs out, then each player adds up the point values of the enemy units they have destroyed during the battle. If one player has a higher total, they win a minor. So that's kind of interesting. It's like, well, by turn 3 or 4 or 5, you have to control both objectives, which is 5 models within both, which is really hard to do, I think. And no enemy models within 6 of either. If you do that, then you basically win. And so at Capital City, the way that I fixed that, because we added secondary objectives, is if a player automatically wins a major victory, you continue playing to 5 turns, so both players have an opportunity to finish their secondary.
Okay.
So if a guy wins the major victory turn 3, and you both have won your secondary, let's say, well, you would just end the game. But if one guy's like, well, I want 2 more turns to try to kill your general so that I can get my objective, then you can totally go for that.
Yeah.
And for Capital City, the secondary is not related. It's just like you can both win your secondary. So I'll hand off to you, John. Blood and Glory. What's that? And I think if anything's repetitive, we can kind of skip.
Okay. So basically, the setup is identical, right? Like the setup it's not identical instead of well, it is. Actually, it is. It's exactly the same.
Different map, yeah.
Different map, but it's the same. Okay. The battle is fought over to control 4 objectives. The objectives are located at the center of each quarter, so it's very similar, only instead of being in each half, they're in each quarter, in the center of each quarter. A player control, same thing. You may show their location with a marker. A player controls an objective if, at the end of the turn, they have more models from their army within 6 inches of the objective than there are enemy models within 6 inches of the objective. So basically, all I have to do is have more models than you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have, you can't contest it. It's just that I have more models than you, I control it.
Yes. But this one, I do believe, but you have to have all 4, which is a lot harder, and they're more spread out.
And they are.
The other one, they're like in the middle, so they're closer together.
Yeah. Starting from the 3rd battle round, 1 player immediately wins a major victory if they control all 4 objectives. If neither player has won by the end, basically it's the same. Then it goes on to the points killed if neither person has succeeded by the 5th turn.
It's a minor victory. So I can see a lot of minor victories. Now, we added draw mechanics which is if it's super unlikely, right?
Yeah.
Like that's if you killed the same amount of units.
Yeah.
But I thought that could come up a lot more frequently because units are in blocks of like 100 or 120. So the next one's a little bit more complicated, and I'm going to have to interject. But Logan, do you have that one?
Yeah, I've got it up here, actually. This one's pretty cool. So
it's really cool.
This plays on reserve mechanics. This is something that everyone's been asking about since since this game came out, is how the heck do reserves work. So for this, basically you take your army, you count up the number of units in it, divide it by 3, rounding up. So if you've got 12 units in your army, you split it into 3 groups of 4. From there, you choose. I think you choose which one you have here. Anyway, one block of those comes in your first turn, gets deployed on your to start the game. The next block of them comes in on your second turn, and the final block comes in on your third turn. Past that, it's the same idea. You take turns alternating deployment. You choose who has first battle round based on whoever finishes setting up first. The deployment for this one is closer to like Vanguard Strike for 40k. It's a diagonal split for the table.
Yep.
So pretty good. For objectives, there's on each. I'm trying to get it in my camera portal here. So there's like an objective here, and then one in the center of the table. And the scoring for this one, the scoring for this one is turn by turn. So for each objective you control in your turn, you get 1 victory point. At the end of the 5th turn, whoever has more victory points wins. If you are tied on it, it goes to points from units killed. But for this one, you can only score an objective if at the end of any turn you have more models from your army within 6 inches of the objective than there are enemy models within 6 inches.
So it's kind of cool how the scoring changes, so that actually affects you. So I was like, we're obviously have 3 more to go through, but a lot of people have been we've been talking about that, is it changes the way in which you have to design your army, because it's like it's not like, okay, this unit always scores, and I know that, so I took 6 of them. It's like it changes. But I want to go back to the setup for escalation, and this is a question that has plagued me, and I play the army, so I'm a little bit, is if a battle scroll says a unit does not deploy normally, how would you guys rule it in escalation? I can tell you how I ruled it, and how I'm thinking of ruling it. It's not being added to the pack yet. Is if your battle scroll says, okay, these guys are deployed separate, then they would not count as they would not be deployed. They would be deployed as per their war scroll.
If you take the stance that the old stance used to be that the army book trumped the rule book.
But it says in the scroll, so I'm thinking the Thunderstrike Brotherhood, it says, do not set them up normally, set them up this way.
Well, how do they come in a later turn?
They come in on you choose the turn, and then they come in as like deep strike.
But
it says
I would
specifically.
I would say that they
normally.
I'd say they still get split up. Like you'd still choose how they split up, but they'd still be deployed based on their war scroll.
Yeah.
So let's say you put them in your first turn, you just have 1 fewer unit to deploy.
But their war scroll says they can come in at the start of any of your turn.
Yeah. So you deploy them you'd play them as per their war scroll, but I don't think it would affect how you split your units.
Yeah. Well, this is how I was thinking, is you would, because they don't deploy normally, they would. So you're saying they would count as how you split your units. You would say, well, these guys are all in the third group.
Well, no. So let's say you've got the 12 units, right? So you got 3 sets of 4. You could still put them in your first one. They just wouldn't be deployed on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you choose whenever you want them to come in, regardless of when the rest of the reserves come.
Yeah.
That would be my take on it.
Yeah, that's a little bit. It's similar to my take but it's like mine. I would say that you would, if you have 12 units and 4 of them are in this formation, then you would take the 8 and you divide those by 3, split them up, and then you would get this group whenever you want. Because otherwise, you would take your formation as the third group. You would put a bigger group on first. A bigger group would come on second, and you'd get your third one at any turn, which doesn't seem right. Like the way that you're saying it, because then you'd have nothing come in turn 3.
Oh, I hadn't realized it was multiple units. Interesting. Okay,
yeah. It's a formation of like 5 or 6 units.
Well, you know more about it than I do, that's for sure. So
I think I'm going to rule it where you take them completely out of the setup phase, and they deploy as per their war scroll, so that if that's like a third of your army, then the other 2/3 would be split 3 ways instead.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's how I think I'm going to rule it. We'll figure that out, but if you have any comments, email us at canhammer.podcast@gmail.com. So we'll go on to the next one, Border War. It's the same setup as the first 2. pitch battle, so it's basically 12 inches from the center. You have your long board edge. You control 4 objectives, 2 of which are in the center of your territory, 2 of which are on the left and right, middle kind of the board. A player controls an objective. At the end of the turn, they have more models from their army within 6 inches of it than there are enemy models within 6 of it, which is pretty solid. That's standard of the other ones. You score points for each objective you control at the end of each of your turns. The number of points you receive varies depending on the objective's location. So they said the one in your own zone is worth 1 point. The one in the border between the territories are worth 2, and the one in the enemy is worth 4. So this is like progressive scoring. So it rewards people that are on the board playing the whole game. And then the player with the most victory points at the end of the 5th battle round gets a major victory. If you are tied at the end of the game, you add up the victory points and etc. and it goes on. So this mission to me is really awesome. It changes the dynamic of the first 3 missions. So you have like kind of like just score objectives, and if I can score turn 3, I win. But this one is like you have to be on the board playing the objectives the whole game, and I really like this one. I think it adds a nice flavor in there, and it's a good follow up to the one with the random deployment, like with breaking your army up. So the next one, John.
3 places of power is the next one. The setup is virtually the same. It's basically divide the table in half. You have to deploy within 12 inches of your board edge and 12 inches away from your opponent. 3 places of power. 3 places of power are located upon the border between the 2 territories, so basically along the halfway line. One lies at the center of the battlefield. The others lie halfway between the central place of the power and the narrow edge of the battlefield. So basically you're dividing the long edge in thirds. We're dividing the table into quarters, but each third there's an objective. A player controls an objective if at the end of any move a hero from their army is within 3 inches of the objective.
Yep.
Only one hero can control each place of power at one time. If more than one is eligible, then the first to arrive controls it. If a hero slays an enemy hero controlling a place of power, then they immediately gain control of the place of power if they were within 3 inches of it.
That's a monkey wrench right into list design, I think.
Yeah.
Like, when I read this, I was like, oh my god, so I have to take heroes. And I need, like, 3 heroes.
You have to take durable ones.
Yeah, durable ones. And you have to put them out there, because a lot of people take the heroes to buff and put them back, so you're like...
hide your Chaos Lord behind the building.
Yeah.
And it's cool because all the other missions are like, you need units. You need units to score, and this one's like, hero. It's really well done, yeah.
At the end of the victory, at the end of each of your turns, you score victory points for each place of power controlled by one of your heroes. The number of victory points is equal to the number of turns that the hero has controlled the place of power.
Yeah.
So if you control it for 1 turn, you get 1 point. You control it for 2, you get 2. 3 is 3. Obviously, counts up.
Which is awesome, because some of the 40k missions, I know I'm taking a tangent here. Everybody's like, shut up, Chris. But some of the 40k missions are like, they'll be like, whichever turn you hold it on, you get that many points.
Yeah.
And it causes the armies at the end of the game that jump on objectives to win quite handily. Whereas I like this because it's like, well, turn 3 you jump out there and you kind of buff your character and you keep them alive. But if you jump out too late, you'll actually not get that many points, right? It rewards a guy being eager, which I really like.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Keep going.
No problem. And basically, the person that has the most victory points at the end of turn 5 gets a major victory. If you're tied, add up the number of units and you get minor victory.
Yeah. So, I love that. I just think this isn't my favorite scenario.
All different.
Yeah, this isn't my favorite scenario.
Yeah.
But in a tournament, following that, when you're trying to design an all-around list, this is like, as I said, a monkey wrench right in the freaking gears. Yeah. I love it. Okay, so we'll go on to the last scenario, Logan.
This one's pretty cool. So, this one's called Gifts from the Heavens. It's normal deployment, same with all the others, same with Triumphs. So, you split the board into 2x2 squares, so into sixths. And at the beginning of the second turn, 2 meteors, or objective markers, fall from the sky and land randomly on each player's side. So each player rolls a d6, and on a 1-2, it's here. On a 3-4, it's here. On a 5-6, it's over in this sixth. And it lands right in the center of that. So for this, You score, and like we were talking about for the last mission, for this one, you score if you are within 6 inches, if you have any models from your army within 6 inches, and no enemy models within 6 inches of that, and you score points equal to the turn number. So if it's turn 5, you get 5 points. If it's turn 3, you get 3 points. And then for victory, it's whoever has the most points at the end. If it's tied, it's battle points, basically.
So I am excited to see who's on round 6, table 1, playing this mission. I'm excited because it's basically 6 objectives, but you don't know. You don't know where they're going to be. So you need, I would say you almost need 3 solid scoring units, 3 adjudicators covering your zone, and then you need the rest of your army in their zone disrupting the hell out of it. And I think it's a really fascinating mission 6.
And you know what I think is the coolest part about this? Is that the General's Handbook has a full battle report of this mission in it.
Yeah, right after this.
And it's like, it's old school. It's none of this fluff crap. It's exactly what's happening for it. It's so nice to see again.
And the best part about it,
when I read the battle report and the teleport bomb goes off, I'm like, finally somebody didn't take a fluffy list. They actually did
it's so cool.
But the coolest part is that GW of old probably would have done 2 meteors drop random corner, and I like that it's like you're guaranteed 1 in your zone and guaranteed 1 in theirs. I think it's random, but it adds a balance element to it, which I think is
symmetrical play. It's so all of these. So this is my first time reading through them. They all seem very reasonably balanced. The hero one I think is going to be the hardest for a lot of people to deal with, but I think almost. Like, you're going to get some interesting bubble wrap mechanics. It's the kind of thing where you have to deal with your enemies shooting or their war machines first, which can leave you vulnerable to, other stuff that's going to attack you later on in it. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I like the missions.
Yeah. So cool. So next we're going to go on. We're not going to go through them. Don't worry. We'll touch for like a few minutes on the points and how they were set up. So who wants to take that away?
Take it away.
Yeah, go for it, Chris.
Sweet. I just don't know if I'm talking too much. Blah blah blah. Anyway, so basically they've separated. Oh, and I should say this in the app. They have now separated everything into sub-faction. So before you used to select an order all, and it would just go everything in like alphabetical order. Now they're separated into their factions, and the reason that's awesome is that it helps you learn what the actual sub-factions are named. It made it easier. I'm like, oh, okay, that's this guy. Oh, okay, that makes sense, right? So anyway, they basically post all these points, and so we'll just go over quick. So basically, you get your unit name. So the first one is obviously Gore. We'll do that one. They have a min size of 10, max size of 30. Their points is 80 in their battle line. So that means they count as your 3 units you would need. Now, the 80 points is for 10 of them, minimum 10. And of course, within their war scroll, you're allowed all these different upgrades, all these different weapons. They all cost, no matter what it is, 80 points for 10. And then if you want to take 30, it goes up to 160, which is then 280. What's that? 340, 240.
240, yeah.
So 240 points for unit 30 Gores. And that's kind of how it works. And so it'll say next to it, this is a battle line unit, this is a leader, this is a war scroll battalion. War scroll battalions cost points. So if you want to take a Windstalker Brayherd, it's 140 points in addition to the models in it. There's things that say, I'm not going to say this, behemoths. Yeah. And then there's leaders. There's also leaders, behemoths. So it would take up both those things. Yeah. And then so the best thing is, sorry.
Those are your big like your like they can. So if you have a leader, so for example, if you take a Chaos Lord on Dragon, then the Chaos Lord occupies the leader spot, but the Dragon he's on is a behemoth, so it counts as both. Yep. It occupies a spot in both spots.
And then some of them have notes next to them where it'll say battle line if the army has the Pestilence Allegiance.
Yeah.
Now this causes a few complications to the next section that we're going to say. So how you choose, so that's basically the points, and they're all in there. Like there's nothing more for us to say on it. But the next really big thing that I wanted to cover, which is something that a lot of people are questioning me about.
Can I just interrupt you for just 2 seconds? It's worth noting that absolutely everything got points.
Yeah, even the legacy stuff.
The armies that are no longer supported by GW, like your Tomb Kings and your Bretonians, everything got points.
Yep.
So if you saw discontinued models and you thought, holy shit, I have a Hell Cannon, I painted beautifully, like me, then the Hell Cannon's points in there. So you can use it.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's really well done. Now, some things don't have points, which is like certain formations or War Scroll battalions don't have points. Those just can't be used in match play for now. They
they're
might
not
get points in the future, but for now they can't be used.
I think it was quite clear that they're intended not to be used in match play. There's quite a few of those formations, and I'll just use the ones that I've been looking at, where they summon free units. They do different things that aren't conducive with match play. I'm thinking of, like, for example, Nurgle's Delight. Once again, focusing on the armies that I've been looking at, but you get basically essentially free Snotlings right out of it, and they bomb down on the battlefield doing mortal wounds. Well, you're not paying for those. They just show up for free. They're not a part of a summon or reserve mechanic. They just pop up, and it creates imbalance. So there's no points for that formation. Not intended for match play.
Yeah.
There are no free formations. I mean, I've seen that. Hey, can I take free? There aren't any free more formations. They're just not intended for match play.
Yeah, and they put them in there for completion, but they're not available. And I'm totally in for that. The only exception is the Dwarf Miners, which are missing points, and that was in the FAQ.
Yeah.
They added their points.
Yeah.
So the next thing is allegiance abilities. So as I said earlier, there's some things that may say if you're a Clan Pestilence allegiance, these guys count as battle line. Now this is a very, very big deal right now. This is why it's a big deal. So for allegiance, you basically, every war scroll has an allegiance to it: order, chaos, death, and destruction. So rules is written, which is not how we're doing it at Capital City. Rules is written, you could mix any model from any faction, whatever you want.
Yep.
It doesn't actually matter. You can just take battle line units, you can take whatever you want. It doesn't matter. The issue is that you no longer get allegiances. So every unit in War Scroll Battalion in a Warhammer Age of Sigmar army is part of one of the Grand Alliances of the Order, Chaos, Death, or Destruction. You also have basically allegiances. So if you take a mixed army from all the 4 factions, which I'll say again is not legal at Capital City, you can only be within the 4 big ones, you basically cannot pick an allegiance for your army. Or if you do, it's a sub-faction. I don't know if I'm really saying that right, but when your army qualifies for more than one allegiance, i.e. all the units are Order and Stormcast Eternal, so all of them have to be Order and Stormcast Eternal, then you can either choose Stormcast Eternal or Order. So if you have a Destruction a unit in your army, you are not an Allegiance, Order, or Stormcast. You can't be either. You can't be any allegiance. Yeah. Correct me if I'm saying anything wrong. I don't think I am. No, so this is a big issue. So if it's Clan Pestilence, you want X unit becomes a battle line unit. Well, you need to take an entire army that has the keywords of Clan Pestilence within it, or else those guys can never be battle line units. Yeah. And here's where the upside is. There's allegiance abilities. Now, there's only 6 allegiance abilities right now. There's Order, Destruction, Death, and what's the other faction? Chaos. Yeah. And then they have Sylvaneth and
Bone Splitters.
Bone Splitters. Now,
which are the 2 newest army books or faction books.
So if your army qualifies for, so if you basically say, okay, I'm going to be an Order Allegiance army because all my units are Order, then you basically get all these free abilities that we're going to talk about, which make it a big deal why you might not want to put a Hell Cannon in your Bretonnian army. Mm-hmm. Now, the only issue that I have for that is that if you want to take battle line units of Clan Pestilence, let's say, and you can no longer be basically a Chaos army, so therefore you would not get these abilities until Allegiance abilities come out for Clan Pestilence. Would you agree, John?
Yes.
So that's an issue. So if you want to change your battle line units right now, you're basically not getting any of these abilities unless you're Bone Splitters, Sylvaneth, or you're taking a Grand Alliance. Which causes issues for Capital City, which means that if you're not taking generic battle line units from either one of the big 4 factions, you don't get these abilities because we've ruled it that you only get the 4 main abilities and that the Bone Splitters and Sylvaneth don't count because they're the only 2 factions that get them. Yep. And there's apparently a book coming out in September that gives all the factions abilities.
I think that makes sense.
So it's kind of weird. So yes, if you're playing Skaven Pestilence, I know I keep using that as an example, and you want, I think it's the Plague Monks as battle line units, you're not getting the Chaos Allegiance ability, sadly. So we're going to start off, we'll go through these 4 quickly because they are game changers. So I'll go through the generic and then I'll do Order and then these guys can do the other ones. Basically, armies, so if you have an entire army with the Order Allegiance in it, and that's the one that you've chosen as your allegiance in your army list, you basically get a brand new battle trait, which is an ability for your whole army. You get to roll on a command trait table, which gives an ability for your general, and you also get artifacts for each. You basically get one generically, and then for each War Scroll battalion you get a random artifact as long as you have a generic hero to use it. So you would need, if you have 5 War Scroll battalions, you need 5 generic heroes to get 5 artifacts.
Yeah, artifacts cannot be taken by named characters.
Yes. That's what I said generic, just as there's some that are listed as named, but so that's a big deal. A lot of people are like, well, man, if I take the Bone Splitters, I can take 8 artifacts. Well, you can't because you're not going to have that many heroes that are generic. But so I'll go through the order ones quickly. So if your whole army's order, you get Defiant Avengers, which is basically that the forces of order are confident in their abilities and are determined to drive the minions of chaos from the mortal realms. When united under one of their generals, they will let nothing deter them from achieving victory. You can re-roll battle shock tests for friendly order units that are within 12 inches of your general or another hero from your army in the battle shock phase. That's pretty good.
The fluff is entirely wrong.
What?
The fluff is entirely wrong.
It doesn't line up?
No, I'm just saying that you're not. They're not gonna. They're determined to drive chaos from the mortal realms. Not happening.
Not happening. I get it. I get what you're saying. In addition, your general gets a random command ability. And this is also given to a named character, right? Can take a command ability. Right?
Command ability. It doesn't say.
So yes, I would assume yes then. So it's a D6 table. The first one is Strategic Genius. Once per battle, your general can use 2 different command abilities in the same hero phase.
Here, Chris, just going to interrupt you for just 1 second. The very first page is named characters. Named characters such as Nagash, Archeon, and Ilariel are singular and mighty warriors with their own unique personalities and bespoke items of terrifying power. As such, these models cannot have command trait or artifacts of power.
Okay, I knew it was artifacts. I forgot the command trait part. So yeah, you're right. So you can't have command traits on named characters. But anyway, the first one is you get to use 2 command traits, or you can use the Inspiring Presence twice in the same hero phase, which is huge. 2 units immune to battle shock. That's awesome. Yeah. He gets. I'm going to go really quick through this. He gets Inspiring, which is you can reroll battle shock tests for your friendly order units within 24 inches of your general rather than 12. He gets Reckless. You can reroll run and charge rolls for your general and all friendly order units within 10. He gets Tenacious. This is if you roll 4. Add 1 to your general's wounds. I like that one. 5, Legendary Fighter. Add 1 to the number of attacks your general makes with 1 melee weapon each combat phase. A different weapon can be chosen in a different combat phase if desired. And then Master of Defense, which is number 6. Roll a dice for each wound or mortal wound inflicted on your general, or on a roll of a 6 or more, the wound or mortal wound is ignored. It's pretty good. So it gives them a kind of little save. It's a nice little added bonus if you take all order. The next one is Artifacts. You'd roll a d6 on this table as well. And you could get, I don't think there's any rule that says you can't duplicate them. So you could get 5 of the same artifact in your army. And this goes on to, as we said, a hero that's generic. First one is Quicksilver Potion. You can use the potion once per battle at the start of a combat phase. This model attacks in the combat phase before any other models and before the player whose turn it is picks a unit to attack with. I like that one a lot. Obstinate Blade. Pick 1 melee weapon that the bearer can use. It cannot be a weapon used by the mount if they have one. Increase the rend characteristics by 1. I like that one too. I like all of them. Relic Blade. Pick 1 melee weapon that the bearer can use. Increase the damage characteristic by 1. Hoarfrost. When you roll this result... What?
Never mind.
It is Hoarfrost, right?
I know it is, yeah.
Yes.
When you roll this result, pick 1 melee weapon that the bearer can use. If an enemy model suffers any wounds from this weapon and is not slain, subtract 1 from its to hit rolls for the rest of the battle. These are all good. I love them all. You can use an amulet once per battle at the start of the combat phase. Subtract 1 from any hit rolls for attacks made against this model. The Phoenix Stone, which is number 6. That last one is the Talisman of Blinding Light. You can heal 1 wound suffered by this model in each of your hero phases. Yeah, I would love to roll the 6 on some of my characters for this. So that's the order ones. They're pretty good. They're nice little buffs. I'll hand it off to John to do Chaos.
All right, so the battle trait for Chaos is Unpredictable Destruction. The servants of the Chaos Gods are bloody defilers that destroy anything in their path. Occasionally, their devotion to the ruinous powers will drive them to greater acts of wanton destruction. Roll a dice when you pick a Chaos unit from your army to attack in the combat phase. If it was within 8 inches of your general or another hero from your army, on a roll of a 6 or more, you can add 1 to all hit rolls for the unit being rolled for in that phase.
It's kind of random.
It is kind of random. 6 is not sometimes
ideal.
hard to come by using CanHammer dice.
Not ideal.
Command traits, obviously they get roll a d6. The first one is Dark Avenger. If the general and all friendly chaos units within 10 inches of him, add 1 to hit rolls against targets with the order keyword. Number 2 is Spiteful Destroyer. Add 1 to the wound rolls for the general's melee weapons, including their mount if they have one.
Including their mount, that's good.
Including the mount, which is good.
Yeah, for that one, yeah.
Cunning Deceiver, subtract 1 from the hit rolls of all enemy attacks made in the first battle round. It doesn't say in the combat. To subtract 1 from the hit rolls of all... So in the first battle round, you're -1 to hit my entire army.
That's pretty good.
Yep. So you're -1 to hit in both shooting and combat for the first battle round, yeah.
That is awesome.
Which is basically shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Unless you're a Stormcast guy's dropping in turn 1, then yeah, he's -1 to hit.
Yeah. All right. Number 4, Lord of War. He's Nicolas Cage.
Oh, God.
All right. Pick a friendly chaos unit within 3 inches of your general in your hero phase. Add 1 to the hit rolls for that unit until the next hero phase. Terrifying Presence is number 5. Subtract 1 from the bravery of the enemy units within 3 inches of your general.
Yep.
And number 6 is the Great Destroyer. Units are affected by unpredictable destruction on a roll of 5 or 6 instead of just only a 6.
Yeah, it's distinctly different from the Order ones, and I like that. Some are similar, but it's distinctly different, and it's cool.
Yeah. All right, and then obviously they get they also get the 6 artifacts of chaos. The first one is a demon weapon. Come on. When you roll this result, pick 1 melee weapon that the bearer can use. It cannot be a weapon used by a mount if they have one. Roll 2 dice after it is used to attack, and then add them together. On a roll of a total of 7 or more, inflict 1 mortal wound on an enemy model of your choice within 3 inches. On a total of 2, inflict 1 mortal wound on basically on itself, on the weapon's bearer. Number 2 is the Chaos Runeblade. When you roll this result, pick 1 melee weapon that the bearer can use. It cannot be a weapon of the mount. Increase the number of attacks made by this weapon by 1. The number 3 is the Beguiling Gem. Once per battle, at the start of a combat phase, pick 1 enemy model within 3 inches of this model. Subtract 1 from all hit rolls for this model in the combat phase. Number 4 is the Chaos Talisman. Please be 4 up invo. No. Chaos Talisman, roll...
It's definitely not that.
No, it's not. Roll a dice for each wound inflicted on this model. On a roll of a 6, the wound is negated and has no effect. Add 1 to the roll if the wound was inflicted by a model with the order keyword. That's actually not bad. That is like a 5-up invul
against order.
Yeah, not bad.
Number 5 is Favor of the Gods.
It's free, right?
Yeah, it's free.
Yeah. And random, so...
Yeah. Add 1 to the wound characteristics of this model. And the number 6 is Crown of Conquest. This model can use the Inspiring Presence command ability even if it is not a general. If this model is a general, it can use the Inspiring Presence ability and another command ability in the same hero phase, or use the Inspiring Presence ability twice in the same hero phase.
I like it a lot, because that's pretty good, because Chaos can be really low bravery at times, a lot of the mortal stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to do Destruction, Logan?
I'm going to have to turn that over to you. I got to look at something else real quick.
Oh, you bastard.
I will cover death, because I've got all my undead.
Oh, that's right, you're a death guy. I think I might be the only Destruction. No, you play Destruction, John.
Yes, and that's what I'm waiting for. I'm playing Chaos until the... I can't call them Moon Clan, but as soon as Night Goblins come out with a book...
Moon Clan. Moon Clan.
They're my first love.
They're like moon pies. Anyway, they're if your whole army is Destruction, you basically get Rampage Destroyers. Basically, roll a dice in your hero phase for each unit from your army that's within 6 inches of your general or another hero from your army. That unit can move a number of inches equal to the dice rolled as if it were the movement phase, but cannot run. This does not affect their ability to move later in the turn. This is pretty good. Basically, a lot of Destruction guys are combat and allows you to jump forward. The command traits, number 1, so it's D6 roll. Nothing left standing. Pick a terrain feature that's within 6 inches of your general and at least 5 other friendly destruction models. That terrain feature no longer provides cover, and any scenery rules it has can no longer be used. Really good if you're trying to, as a combat in assault, a dug-in enemy. Might is right. What's that? That's kind of remind me of Mortal Kombat, but add 1 to the wounds rolls. Add 1 to the wound rolls made for the general's melee weapon. Just pretty good on it. Just a lot of these destruction guys are pretty deadly. Add 1 to the general's hit rolls if they have lost any wounds. That's Wild Fury. Add 1 to the general's hit and wound rolls if they have been reduced to less than half their starting number of wounds. So that could be really good. Bellowing Tyrant, number 4. Pick a friendly destruction unit within D6 inches of the general in your hero phase. Add 1 to the hit rolls for that unit until the next your hero phase. Very random. Big and brutish, just like John. Add 1 to the general's wound characteristic. Ravager. Add 2 to the dice roll for rampaging destroyers. That's pretty good. So, artifacts. Number 1, Meteoric Hammerblade. Pick 1 melee weapon that the bearer can use. Instead of attacking normally with that weapon, the bearer can use to smash the ground. If they do so, roll a dice for each model within 3 inches of the bearer. On a 5 or 6, they suffer a mortal wound. The unit the model belongs to suffers, so your enemy can allocate it however they want. That's very distinctly worded. Talisman of Protection. Roll a dice each time this model suffers a mortal wound. On a roll of 4 or more, the mortal wound is stopped by the talisman and has no effect. That's a throwback to 8th edition.
I was going to say, there's the 4-up ward.
Wow, that's good.
It's only against mortal wounds.
Still, that's
So
really
it's not-
good.
It is really good. It's still, though, you have to get an artifact. You have to roll a 2. But in your hero phase, pick an enemy unit within 12 inches of this model. Add 1 to all hit rolls made by the model against a chosen unit until your next hero phase. Blade of Vituperation. In the combat phase, you can reroll 1 failed wound roll for each enemy hero within 12 inches of this model.
Say that again.
What do you mean? Vituperation?
Vituperation.
Is that what you guys think it is?
I gotta look this one up.
This next one, Collar of Domination. That sounds like something in Logan's house. At the start of the enemy movement phase, pick an enemy monster within 3 inches of this model, then roll 2 dice and add them together. If the total is equal to or greater than the enemy monster's bravery, it must make a retreat move in that movement phase, which then means it can't charge you again. So you can be like, "Oh, hey, big beastie, bye-bye." I actually really love the Collar of Domination, and its name is appropriate, which is the best part about it. Battle Brew. In any of your hero phases, you can declare that this model will drink either 1 of 2 swigs of Battle Brew, my kind of hero. If the hero takes 1 swig, add 1 to all hit and to wound rolls for the model until your next hero phase. If he takes 2 swigs, add 2 to all hit and wound rolls for the model until your next hero phase, but the hero suffers 1 mortal wound at the start of each of your future hero phases for the rest of the battle.
Oops.
Oh my. Well, I mean, that's a good Hail Mary.
If it's on a minor hero who's really got to kill something, that could be excellent turn 5 because you know there's no more turns.
Yep.
How many wounds do Ogre Heroes have?
Lots.
Quite a few, don't they?
Well, it varies depending on the hero, of course,
It's like 4
but
to
it's quite a
6
few.
usually, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did actually pronounce it correctly. It seems to be vituperation. That means bitter and abusive language.
Blade of bitter and abusive language.
Why
I'm
not?
calling it that from now on.
So let's read the fluff on that one, just because it makes this blade
This
seems to
blade-
empower the wielder in proportion to the volume of insults. So it's dead on, yeah.
Yeah.
Insults that he shouts at the leaders of the opposing army.
It's perfect.
Sick. So you want to do death, Logan?
I would love to do death. So, the Allegiance ability's death. The battle trait is Deathless Minions. The servants, the rulers of the dead, are all but immune to pain. So every time what do we have here? Roll dice every time a mortal wound or a normal wound is inflicted upon a death unit from your army that's within 10 inches of your general or another hero from your army. On a 6 or more, the wound is negated and has no effect.
6 up board, bro.
Pretty awesome. It gets better. Let's look at the command traits.
Yeah, the death needed a boost, I think, and I think this is what... I think they really boosted death on purpose. I really do. I believe that the death were weaker than the other factions, for sure, and that this was done to boost them.
So, here we go. Command trait number 1, Ruler of the Night. Add 1 to the dice roll to see if wounds are negated from deathless minions. So, you basically get feel no pain on your entire army, which is amazing. Predator of the Shadows. Add 1 to your hit rolls for your general if they're in cover. Meh. Death Incarnate. In your hero phase, pick an enemy unit within 3 inches of your general and roll 2 dice. If the total rolled equals or exceeds the enemy unit's bravery, it takes D3 mortal wounds.
Not bad. Not great, but not bad.
Yeah, Master of the Black Arts. Your general is a wizard that now knows Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield. If it was already a wizard, you add 1 to the casting totals of everything.
That's pretty good.
Not bad. 5 is Red
Especially
Fury.
a summoning army.
Yeah, especially in that. 5 is Red Fury. Roll a dice after your general attacks in the combat phase. If the roll is less than the number of wounds they inflicted, they can immediately attack again. That's really good.
Yeah.
And
it's
then
traditional Red Fury, yeah.
Yep. And then 6 is Supernatural Horror. Double the number of models that flee from enemy units if they're within 10 inches of your general in the battle shock phase.
Yep. I love
That's
that.
solid.
That's huge. There's so many times I was playing my brother and it'd be like, 2 models flee. Well, boom, that unit's gone, right?
Yep.
Because once you get down to single units, too, it's like... So that's the thing that burns me about bravery sometimes is you kill them down to a single man and then they're like immune to bravery and you're like, shoot, right?
Yep.
Whereas if like it would just kill them outright. So if they failed their bravery, yeah.
All right, so artifacts. Number 1, the Cursed Book. Subtract 1 from hit rolls of any unit within 3 inches of this model, friend or foe, unless they are death.
Sick.
Good. 2, Cloak of Mist and Shadows. The model can use the cloak once per battle in your hero phase. When it does so, remove the model from the battlefield and then set it up again up to 12 inches away from its original location and more than 3 inches away from enemy models. That's so good.
It is good.
3 is Sword of Unholy Power. Once per battle in the hero phase, the bearer is allowed to cast a spell that summons a model with the death keyword onto the battlefield. This is in addition to the spells that can normally be cast. This spell is cast automatically and cannot be dispelled.
Yep.
That's incredibly good. Black Amulet. Once per battle in your hero phase, this model can unleash the magic stored in the amulet. When it does so, pick an enemy unit within 12 inches. The unit you pick suffers number of wounds equal to the number of the current battle round. You cannot pick a unit with a death keyword. It's good for picking off a couple guys on an objective.
Oh, yeah.
5, Tombblade. Pick a melee weapon the bearer can use. Cannot be a weapon used by the mount. They have one. If any of the attacks made by the weapon slays an enemy model, you can heal 1 wound suffered by the bearer or by any death model for each any death model within 6 inches of the bearer for each model that was slain. So that's really good. Send your vampire lord through to carve out some goblins. And 6, the Ring of Immortality. If the model bearing this ring is slain, set it up again anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 12 inches away from enemy models. The model is restored with D3 wounds remaining. Once used, the ring cannot be used again in the same battle.
Yep.
I'm liking it.
So the awesome part about this is that they brought basically incentive to take sub-factions.
Yes.
Which is a huge thing, because now it was like, well, there's 4 factions, take what you want. Well, when you combine the point values with making certain units battle line, and then you combine that there's, I'm assuming there's going to be 300 of these little 2-page things on all the different abilities you can get, it'll really incentivize you to be like, I'm going to take this specific Slayer army or the specific Free People army, which I think is good, because you don't have to. You can be a kid and have whatever you want, mix and match it, but it gives you an advantage if you say, like Nick does this, I want to play pure Seraphon, I don't want to add allies in. Well, then, I think he said, maybe he didn't. But anyway,
but think about how many...
Take that army.
If that's the case, and people are going to play that, which I think is going to happen, think about how many armies there now are. There's
Lots.
like 60
there's
armies.
tons. Yeah.
Which is awesome. I think it's awesome.
A lot of variety.
This is huge. You can go to an event and not not even see the same army.
Yeah.
Right? What's the chances of 2 people showing up and playing Moon Clan or 2 people showing up and playing Fire Slayers? Like, it's right.
I'm gonna say it's pretty high when you say like Fire Slayers, because they seem common on Twitter. You know,
those Sylvaneth. Like it'll
sure.
be
So
the new
there's
hotness, but like I don't think I'm gonna see 3 identical death armies.
Yeah.
Though Flesh Eater courts are popular, but
once there is a meta, which we haven't discussed because there is no meta. At least I don't think there's a meta.
There is one. It's developing, but it's in the early stages.
But there isn't. Yeah, you're not going to see the same army lists, right?
Yep.
So, right, I think it's awesome that there's that many. Like, so you could walk into a GW or into a store and someone says, "What do you play?" and you can say, "I play Forest Goblins."
Or Order. I play Order. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so you take everything. Or I play Stormcast Eternals, which means I still can't have Stormcast Extremadus guys in there.
Yeah.
Which I really like that. I also like that this is a way to allow us to kind of go a throwback to some of our old items that we miss, like, Red Fury. I played Vampire Counts. I loved Red Fury. Talisman of Protection. It kind of is a nice throwback. We get items now. Yes, it's random, and they're not as great as they used to be, but it's cool.
I want to talk about that. So you keep saying it's random. The rules say to choose or randomize.
Yes.
So which are you doing for Bloodbath?
I put random in the pack. It's in the pack.
That makes me
Random.
sad. Makes me sad, Chris. So the one thing that this so overall, I'm actually pretty excited about this. I think it's cool. It's going to brush the dust off my undead. The one thing that I still don't like about Age of Sigmar is that there's very, very little customization. Like, I love me some Hero Hammer. That's the game I play. Even in 40K, I love Hero Hammer. And you can't do that with this. I mean, if you can choose. So I understand randomizing this stuff really helps, because otherwise you get like the whole Master of Ambush thing, right? Where, if I can choose this, I'm always going to take it.
And you build a list around it.
You build a list around it. But I kind of like that aspect of it. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops over, a couple tournaments and more
I
play.
can give you my thought process. My thought process, too, is it's new. I don't want people just taking the same thing. I want it like 40K. I want it random so that people like try out different things and learn different things. I don't want it to be like right from the get-go where just everybody picks the Talisman of Preservation on this guy and they never use any other abilities. Mm-hmm. So that's why I kind of went with the random thing.
Yeah.
And I was also worried about it breaking the game in a combo in which because I've been racking my brain with this pack to try and figure out, like, because Carrion, I said they don't score if they have to be on the ground for a full turn to score, right?
Yep.
So I didn't want somebody to break the game. Mm-hmm. And so I went through so many war scrolls and so many questions to just fix that. And I thought that adding it random just gave me less chance of somebody breaking the game.
Yep.
That's why I did it. That's why I did it.
Yeah.
I can't read every one of these abilities, then go through every war scroll and be like, this one makes these 4 like ridiculous, right? I just can't do that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Makes sense.
That's why. But yeah, I agree with you. It'd be nice to pick it, customize, build an army around it. It'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I would love to have me an army of ghouls that's getting a 5-up reanimate, basically.
So cool. So that's it for the General's Handbook. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Actually, I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10 because it didn't say measuring base to base was mandatory. John, what do you think of it?
I'm giving it a 9 out of 10, and the last point and the missing point is because I had to order it and buy it twice.
Yeah, I don't...
That's it.
That's GW management and lack of transparency's fault, not necessarily the book's fault. But yeah, I could see why you would do that, yeah. Logan?
I'm going to go a little on the lower side. I'm going to say an 8. I really like what they've done. I think everything's trending in the right direction. There are still some parts of the game that don't click for me. Probably the biggest one is that a lot of the point costs, I think, are on the low end, and I don't mean that in terms of a balance aspect. I mean that in terms of a number of models on the table aspect. So for a death army, unless you are spamming, like let's say Flesh Eater Cords, right? Unless I am spamming Crypt Horrors, which are obscenely expensive models, I'm going to have hundreds of models on the table just to play 2,000 points, and that's brutal.
That's rare though. I find a lot of my lists are very small.
Well, you're playing Stormcast, right? Put
well, we did Stormcast. We did.
So the new stuff,
some Dark Elf stuff.
The new stuff is a bit easier, but put together. So take this as homework, listeners, co-hosts, what have you. Put together a Flesh Eater Court list and try to get it under 80 models. It's very, very hard unless you spam Crypt Horrors.
You don't want to because you're going to take 60 ghouls, 100%.
Yeah, you definitely are. Right. I don't want to move 60 ghouls around the table, and I don't want to have to move 60 ghouls around the table.
I would though. I think I would because it's so good. I think I would do it. And I would just rush through it. Like, I used to play 90 Orc Boys in 5th edition, so I think I can handle that. But
it's not a matter of handling it. I think that in a game where you're dealing with a bunch of models, I really, really don't like the aesthetic of it, and I despise playing that style of game. Yeah. That's why I play models and armies in 40K. They're like 20 models. But I mean that's me. That's why I put it a bit lower. The content I think is fantastic. I think the direction of the game is exactly where it needs to go. There's just a couple things that still don't quite click for me. That's all.
Yep, that's fair enough. I totally get that. But yeah, I've seen like army lists range from, as you said, 100 models to like 10 or 5. Like,
you can have very
Caleb
small
made
ones.
a 1,000-point army that was 31 models, right? And it's like ridiculous. But all in all, yeah, it's an awesome direction. We'll talk more about it in the future. So we're gonna move on to pimping of a list. Now, we can't. It's too early to really. So we're going to do the best that we can. This is And it's not going to be as in depth as maybe when we pimp a 40K list because our knowledge isn't there. Like I haven't played that many games against. Well, I haven't played against dwarves ever in Age of Sigmar, so that's one of the issues. But so it comes in. We got an email. I'm just trying to decide how I want an army to be. This is what he's thinking: 3 units of 10 warriors with great axes and shields, 20 hammers, 5 gyrocopters, 2 flame cannons, 1 grim burloxen, Ungrim Iron Fist, and a Rune Smitter on a Magma Droth, and that's it. He's thinking he might drop a Flame Cannon and add 20 Miners or do something else. What do you guys think?
Never drop flame cannons. That's the only thing I can add to this. Never drop flame cannons.
I'll second that as well.
All right. So here's the question: do we know what he's trying to achieve with this list? What he's trying to do with it? And I'll give you my opinion as to what I think he's trying to do.
Oh, his name's Nick. Sorry, I should say Nick. I won't give his last name.
Okay, so Nick, so do we know what he's trying to do? So I'm assuming, so let's go with he's playing dwarves. There are only 2 battle line units in dwarves. One of them is warriors, one of them is longbeards.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at the warriors are basically like your basic troop, right? They're just a guy. They come with 2 weapons options. The great axe is the obvious choice to take.
Of course, yeah, I agree with that.
So if he's taking now if he's taking warriors, that's the right layout. If he is taking longbeards, give you essentially one better. They're more points. So instead of warriors are 100 points for 10, longbeards are 140 for 10. If you longbeards have 1 better bravery, 1 better armor save, but their attacking is the same, and they give you 3 abilities. None of which are relevant to this list as it's laid out.
Okay.
So the warriors are the right choice here. Now he's taken 20 hammers. 20 hammers. They hit a little better.
I think they're very, very good. Yeah. They have nothing really backing them up.
Yeah, they get 2 attacks each. They hit on 3s, wound on 3s. They have rend 1. They only have a 4-up armor save, but they only have 1 wound. And they're bravery 6. So you are going to lose a bunch of these, right? But I think it's into the style of what he's playing. So then he's got, and here's the other thing. So he's got 5 gyrocopters. Now I'm assuming that, so gyrocopters come with 2 weapons options. One of them is shoot 3 times. The other one is, and basically it's like hit on 3s, wound on 3s, rend 1 or something like that. But the other one's a steam cannon. And it rolls to hit however many models are within 6 inches of it. So So what I'm thinking he's trying to do, because he's got 2 flame cannons, so he's going to use the flame cannons to make you come to him. He's going to engage you with all of his combat units, and then the gyrocopters and the magma droth, because he's taking the magma droth, has a very similar attack, like a flame attack that hits the number of models that are close to it.
Yep.
And then, so he's gonna come. You have to come to him because he's going to bomb you with the flame cannons. You come to him, he engages you with his combat units, and then he shoots the shit out of you with engaged units with all of these things that hit everything within 6 inches.
And can fly and move.
And can fly and move, right?
And they can also contest objectives, and when a lot of the scenarios are you need 1 model to contest, it might be nice to feed a gyrocopter into that enemy objective every turn to contest it.
But here's the thing, he says 5 gyrocopters. Is that 5 gyrocopters in 1 unit, or is that 5 individual gyrocopters? Because gyrocopters can be taken as...
I assumed it was 5 solo units.
Okay.
Because they don't have any keywords next to them. I don't think.
They're in the they're in the like the artillery. Like I think it's Iron Forge artillery.
But they're not artillery, right?
But that's where they're in. So, and they have.
But I mean, they don't have the artillery keyword, so they don't count. You can take unlimited units of them.
But they have the Dwarden keyword, which is not dispossessed or dwarves.
Yeah, but he'll be going order because there is no reason to ever do that, and warriors are. Battle line in order.
They are, yes.
Yeah. So he's still legal with that's what I'm saying. He's still legal with that, but in the future he might have to, if he wants to get better sub abilities, change it up. But
I guess what I'm saying is he's not going to benefit from some of the other characters he has in the list, giving buffs to Dwarden units or dispossessed units, right? That he's not going to get those.
Which is what
same with the Rune Spinner. So the Magma Droth, the Rune Spinner on Magma Droth gives a bunch of buffs to Fire Slayer units.
That's what I was saying, and there's no Fire Slayer units.
There's no Fire Slayer units. But I think that he's just trying to get you close so that he can bomb you, right? Yeah. Like that's like you can use the Fire Breath to sort of like, shoot at you.
And Nick's a very I've seen a lot of his stuff. His army has won best painted at tournaments that he did not attend, but he might be going for best painted as well.
Sure.
So that could be. So I didn't ask
So
him that, but when I looked at the Magma Droth, I was like, I wonder if that's his centerpiece.
it could be. The problem that I can see with the list is if you only have 2 flame cannons, I'm not coming to you. Right? I'm not going to get close enough to those models that do all these flame attacks. I'm going to sit back and shoot you. Or try to sit back and shoot you.
Yeah, so that's why I was thinking, like, I would not drop the flame cannon, but I was thinking the 20 miners are pretty good with their abilities. They can take objectives quite well. So I was thinking that they might be a nice fit into it. And I know that he just got them converted up from what are the metal guys now? The new Ironbreaker kit. He got them converted up as miners. I would be tempted to drop the Magma Droth because, as you said, you take the 5 gyrocopters with the guns. You take Grim Burloxin. I almost want to add like a unit of missile troops in there.
I was going to say missile troops, but then we just spent all that time talking about scenarios. He has 3 characters for mission 5, right? Where he's got to put characters on objectives. They're not surviving. Like, I mean, like, so the Magma Droth can survive, but
that's a good point. That could be good for that mission. Yeah.
Yeah, those 2 characters aren't surviving out in the open, and he has no resiliency to take or like duplicity to if he loses one, he can't claim all the objectives, right?
But on the counterpoint, with those 2 flame cannons, it's going to be unlikely that enemy characters are going to be on those objectives.
Yeah, potential, right?
There's also, you could take an engineer, which will heal wounds back on the flame. He's not an engineer anymore. He's called a.
Yeah. I'm assuming Grim Burloxin sits back with those flame cannons because he's an engineer.
He does, and he heals them, but you could take another one and keep them like alive for the long term. Yeah. But I do like it. It's a nice experiment. It would be, but I do think that a lot of his buffs don't overlap, and I think that's where your army lists start getting really effective. So with my Stormcast Eternals, I'll take a Knight Velexor, which basically teleports a unit, and then I'll take a Lord. I think it's Celestant. Oh. Yeah. There's they're all like the same, Celestant, Castellan, whatever. I take the one that gives +1 to hit, because they have axes that when on their hammer, on a 6, they do 2 mortal wounds. So you give them +1 to hit on a 5/6, I do 2 mortal wounds with all my guys, right? You can also take an Arcanum, Hurricanum or whatever, and do the same concept. And so by having buff stack, it makes them great. So the Magma Droth guy's excellent if you're taking a Fireslayer army, because he basically buffs them and you can stack them up. So as you said earlier, John, he's good, but
yeah,
if you're not stacking layers and layers of buffs and abilities, you're not fully getting every point out of your models.
Yeah, I agree. And also the Magma Droth, as your opponent wounds it, it starts hitting nearby models. So if you can shoot at the Magma Droth, Fire Slayers are only hit on 1s. Like if you roll a 1, but other models are hit on there's a thing you have to roll under.
Yep.
But they are more likely to be hit. So if you start pegging that Magma Droth and it's close to stuff, it's going to start hurting his own troops because they're not Fire Slayers. So, right, it is a bit of a crutch too, right?
Yeah. So Ungrim also kind of sticks out there for me. Like there's no Slayers in the list, or but so that's kind of it. I would maybe rethink the actual core list. I think is quite good.
Yeah,
I do like the hammers. I would rethink the characters and just try to get more out of them.
Yeah, I agree.
So I guess that's it for the Pimp My List. Thanks for sending that in. I hope that was helpful and insightful. Knowing that it's a new book, it's a new world of possibilities. So that's the best we can do. But he'll be playing at Capital City. We'll hopefully get back to him. And actually, he won't be playing unless we add 2 spots, which we will be doing. So sorry, Nick. Cool. So we're going to move on to question and answers. So if you're live in the Twitch stream, please send your questions right away. Logan will be monitoring that.
Yep.
But we'll get into the ones that people have submitted earlier on prior to the podcast. I haven't checked Twitter in the last hour, so we'll have to check if anybody has added any to that. So what's the first question?
So actually, one thing I want to note just really quickly before I forget this, because I think it's a cool announcement here, is so the Age of Sigmar app has points. The Battlescribe repositories for all of the points are currently in works. They just went up on the GitHub repo about 15 hours ago, so expect those to be rolling out over the next few days. All right, questions. First one, what are your predictions for the top builds, races, and armies?
I think it's way too early to tell.
Yep.
No, I can tell. So
Okay, give it.
Chris has already mastered this game.
no, I'm not mastered it. I can tell you what I'm personally scared of playing against.
Okay.
Sure.
And I think that's the best way to start. What's the top races? Flesh Eater Court, Sylvaneth, the tree walk with all the forests and the teleporting, and Durthu coming in your zone from a forest, teleporting in. So Sylvaneth, Flesh Eater Court, and Stormcast Eternals, I think, are the big three to watch out for and learn how to play against and learn a strategy to play against. So for Flesh Eater Court, I personally would like to bring some indirect artillery to just nuke those damn characters.
Yeah.
They give all the buffs and let everything fight twice. Stormcast, you're kind of boned if he goes first because the Vlexor is going to teleport bomb you. That's not necessarily the best build, but it's really, really, really good. But you have to learn how to bubble wrap to defend against the Vlexor bomb. And then the Sylvaneth, I don't have a plan for it because I haven't played it enough. So it's everywhere. It's fast. It's fragile. You have to tie it down. You have to, and you'll kill it. But it's a lot of pain coming.
So when you say Flesh Eater Courts, are you referring to the literal like war scroll, the battalion Flesh Eater Courts, or just that sort of the ghoul based list that's all Flesh Eater?
So
Courts?
there's formations that allow them to do certain, like basically the Flesh Eater Court is now it's a bigger faction than it used to be.
Yes.
It used to be more the ghouls and the smaller formation. I'm talking more the smaller one, but it's when you get the ghouls, you get the what's the big ghouls called? Crypt Horrors. I have 9 of them. I should know that. Crypt Horrors, and you get all the Ghoul Kings and all the characters, and they have all these buffs that super stack, and then you take like Kemmler, and he can't be killed, and you basically buff all these friggin' units, and they fight twice, and they're super resilient, they're super survivable.
Reroll into hit, reroll into wounds, now
It's
ignoring wounds
gross.
on 6s. Yeah, it's solid.
So that's what I'm getting at, is expect that and expect to snipe the characters. Now, I played Brad Schwan at Adepticon, and he was really good about this. If there's a mission where it's like assassinate the enemy general, and Heimlich Kemmlar's the general, don't pick him. Because he's basically unkillable if you want him to be.
Yeah.
So, cool, what's the next one?
Next one. How much do you predict will player comp play a role in tournaments moving forward?
I think I was able to cover almost all the issues in a paragraph, half a page.
I think
So I don't think a lot.
I think there's not a game system that we haven't had that doesn't requires at least some level of tweaking as soon as somebody figures out how to break something. So I think it'll always be there. I think it'll be there to make the game more enjoyable, just like it's always been there in the past.
Yeah. I think we're still gonna. I think this is gonna be somewhat similar to 8th. So 8th was perfectly playable, uncomped. Yes, there were builds that people thought were ridiculous.
I liked it
But you
uncomped a lot.
You could still play the game. You could still have a lot of fun playing uncomped. We all did. I mean, that was our thing up here in Ontario. You guys, you know, far longer than me even. That said, you know, people still went out of their way. Like there was Swedish, there was ETC, there was whatever the hell else. You know, it's still going to happen. I think. So far, anyway, the actual GW FAQ has addressed almost everything you'd need to plug the holes for. So
Yep.
the only way we're going to know is as it moves forward and people find absolutely ridiculous ways to abuse the rules. I think there are a couple things that can still be clarified a little further. I think it's FAQ stuff rather than balance tweaks.
No,
but
there are different balance tweaks.
Yep.
Like Carrion are like, they need it to me. And people might say I'm overreacting. Those things are bent as hell if you don't comp them. You can just take 5 units, fly them high, and then take objectives. You win turn 3, right? If depending on the mission, of course.
Well, yes, but that also relies on your opponent leaving them undefended, right? That's the trick with a lot of these. The mission design fixed a huge number of problems that were in the original version of this game that made it, I'd say, unplayable.
I just don't like having a unit on the board that you can never target.
Oh yeah, I agree
For the whole game.
But I mean, I think it's small stuff like that. They've addressed, you know, everything that jumped out at me with the original release as being just game breaking. So, you know, we'll see where it goes, but I think it's off to a good start on that front.
Cool. So what's the next one?
All right, should Age of Sigmar tournaments embrace table-specific rules at tournaments? For example, 1 table is from the life realm, each unit heals D3 wounds per turn.
I'm okay with that. I think it's fluffy. If people, what do you mean no?
No.
So that's like the 2 different styles, which is fine. I'm cool with either. I would like to go to a tournament like, let's say it's like the Astronomicon, where each table has its own scenario, each table has its own terrain, each table is in its own realm. That's definitely awesome and cool if you want to do that. That's a ton of work on the TO though to actually do it. Now there are what's the one in near Chicago, the fluffy tournament that is it Herner runs? The guys from the Northeast went there. Holy Wars.
Holy Wars. Okay. Yep.
I think they did stuff like that, but that was expected from them, right? Which is very cool. Now, in one of our style of tournaments, I would say probably not. Yeah. We don't do random terrain. We're not into that, but it definitely has a place, and it's very cool.
I'd say I think Astro is a great example of that. It's great for a more narrative-based event. I think that would be the biggest pile of bullshit you could possibly throw into a competitive style of play, though. It's like, hey, you're on table 5. Your opponent gets to heal D3 wounds on all their units every turn.
Yeah. And so the next two were just tongue-in-cheek from me questions, but we already answered them. So we can go on to the live stream for any more questions.
I think that's... actually, we'll talk about Jeff's question here. So if modifiers are done after the dice roll, how does that work for an ability that happens on a set dice roll? For example, the Ogre Iron Fists that cause a mortal wound on a save of a 6. If I have +1 to my save, does that mean I cause a mortal wound on a 6, or if I roll a 5?
I think it says 6 or greater.
Yeah, so my take on it is...
I have to look that one up.
Because it's based on the result rather than the roll, even if you rolled a 5 and you had the +1, the 6 is still the result, so you cause the mortal wound.
Yeah, I have the same thing.
So... I would say it distinctly depends on the wording of the
right. If it says roll versus result,
yes,
yeah.
So because all the Stormcast Eternal ones, that's because those are the scrolls I know cold. All of them say on a 6 or better, so 6 or 7, and a lot of them even have abilities that happen on a 7. So I would say that's pretty much fixed. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else?
That is the only question we have, apart from some comments about Sylvaneth being hella broken.
Who says that?
That's Jeff as well. Actually, we do have one other question. So then Rend -1 makes it not work. In theory, yes, because you'd never be able to get the 6 result.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So I have to really that sounds right to me initially, but if we're wrong, email us. Feel free.
That's off the cuff, right? I don't know this stuff super well, but from what I remember, that seems
how
to
I
be
play it,
right.
Yeah. Well, there's also been a weird thing. So this is what I wanted to talk about. One of the Stormcast Eternal characters that I use quite heavily, I always played it a certain way, and it basically says that at the start of your turn, so it's his command abilities. If he's the general, him and all units within, I want to say 9 inches or 12 inches. I should know this. I'm just really tired. They gain +1 to hit till the next hero phase. Does that mean that the units have to stay within range of him? Or is it when the ability goes off, all the units within 9 get +1 to hit till the end of the phase, even if they move out?
So that seems like a good thing to add in our FAQ. Yeah.
It is and it isn't, though.
Stay in the bubble.
But it doesn't... So my argument to that was that rules as written say, when you do an ability in the command phase, it just goes off, right?
Yep.
And so when it goes off, all units within 12 get +1 to hit. I thought that if it said if it was a bubble spell, it would have said something like all units. It would be like this for till the next hero phase. Any units that are within or maybe stay within. I forget the wording of it, but I had it it could be interpreted either way.
I'm on your side with this, Chris. I think it depends on the wording, but if it says when you activate this ability, all units within 12 inches get +1 to hit until the next hero phase. Doesn't matter if they stay there; it just matters that they're within 12 at that time. So a good comparison point is for 40k with the Canoptic Harvest.
Oh, Harvest.
For giving the abilities.
You reference the Cursed Earth.
So Cursed Earth is an aura, though. That's a little different, because Cursed Earth depends on the positioning of the model when you actually go to resolve it. And it specifically says that it only happens for models that are within 12 inches of the caster.
At that time. That's
time.
A specific rule, though.
That's auras. There's no direct equivalent to that in AOS.
But the way I look at it is AOS, they don't have types of spells, and so if I summon a unit, it comes on the board right away. If I do a magic thing, boom. If I make a unit immune to battle shock, I pick the unit right away. It's immune to battle shock till the next hero phase. So if it says all models within 12 inches of this guy get +1 to hit, then I would assume that you just measure 12 inches from them. They all get +1 to hit until the start of the next hero phase.
I'd want to see the wording to know exactly how it works, but
Yeah, so if you have any feedback on that, I would appreciate it because I've had a really long debate with Dan about it, and him and I are both biased as we both play the telebomb. So let us know. But anyway, I guess that's everything. We're going a bit late now, so thanks for the live stream, guys, for asking some questions. I know that we're usually a 40K cast as of recently, but we're hoping to get more and more AOS content as now it's playable in the way that we enjoy it
Yep.
competitively. But yeah, thanks for listening. Any feedback, go canhammer.podcast@gmail.com, 1plusarmor.com for any more information. We also have canhammer.com still. With that, check out Capital C Bloodbath, www.capitalcbloodbath.com. It's coming up in 3 weeks. It's going to be a really good time. Thanks, John, for joining us. It was really fun.
Having me. Please send all your fan mail to canhammer.podcast@gmail.com requesting me back on instead of sending it to me directly personally, because that way Chris doesn't see it.
Oh, I want to see it, yeah. And thanks again for joining me, Logan. And thank you guys for listening.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Take it easy.